when you fake like that. Head out of the game, I don't take that back. Once you let me go, no, you never come back. I'ma be the best that you never had. I'ma keep, 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 I'ma be the best that you never had. Rumba pa pa, rumba pa pa, see I got it. Rumba pa pa, rumba pa pa, no you want it. I don't flex, I'm success. Effortless, I'm like a rumba pa pa, rumba pa pa, see I got it. I don't flex, I'm success. I don't flex, I'm success. I don't flex.
How y'all doing today? It's a new setup. Mike's in a different position. It's all weird. But we have just witnessed game one of what some people are predicting is a sweep. The Denver Nuggets, Miami Heat. Y'all expecting this to be close? The lines are open. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we saw. Because in a lot of ways, what the Miami Heat do, I mean, granted, they do have a superstar, right? I don't want to put that in air quotes, but during the regular season, people tend to forget that Jimmy Buckets is a superstar. But in the playoffs, he always reminds us. He always reminds us that he can get into his spots, into the mid-range, and, you know, he can take over games late, and he can facilitate for others. He's a very complete player. And in that way, you know, his game really shines in the playoffs. He's done it time and time again. Heat culture is on the rise after a year of being mocked. Let's talk about that. But on the other side, how have the Heat actually gotten this far? A lot of teams that settled for a lot of jumpers. I think that's a fair point. You know, there are a lot of teams here that have not punished the Miami Heat for their lack of size. Bam Adebayo, probably about 6'9". Not a lot of shot blocking in there. Playing, you know, Duncan Robinson. You can get into the paint. You gotta really question why the Boston Celtics didn't do more of that. But they're not here, and the Heat are. And I think the Heat have met a team that's finally giving them the respect. Maybe we need to talk about Nuggets culture. There's a lot of parallels between these two teams, and what we saw tonight was, I think, talent just winning out. You saw Nikola Jokic just sort of ease himself into the game, not really looking to score, you know, just any rust that the Nuggets might have had. It didn't matter. It didn't matter because this guy's just finding you point blank under the rim for a layup. He's finding you just in the pocket. Everything's easy. Everything's easy when you're playing with Nikola Jokic, right? Everything. And he can do whatever he wants on the basketball court. That's something that, you know, you really have to just stop and appreciate it. I know a lot was made about Joel Embiid, you know, leading the league in points. Jokic could have done that. I went on a rant about 3 weeks ago about how the MVP award was a joke, right? RKER-TV saying, I think we have a new big fundamental on our hands. Did you happen to catch Nikola Jokic talking about how influential Tim Duncan has been in terms of how he models his game? You know, Duncan was a guy that I feel was a very complicated scorer. He could take you he could take you on the block. He could put you in under. But a couple things about Tim Duncan that just always stuck out to me was coachable team first guy. And number two, never rushed. Everything was pretty ground bound. You know, a lot of people called him boring to watch. I loved watching Tim Duncan. There's a reason why my first jersey that I ever bought was a 21 jersey. And quite frankly, I am very proud of Nikola Jokic right now because I think it is a great counterbalance to what we have been talking about in the NBA forever. What's my point? Let me get to my point. All year, we saw a player that I believe tried his best to do the right things on the basketball court. Not take too many shots, not take out of rhythm shots. And we consistently heard this trend of he's not being assertive enough. He's not being assertive enough. You know, not taking a shot, like he's not being assertive. And there's some credence to that. There's absolutely a point that Scotty Barnes needs to be more aggressive looking to score. It'll unlock his game. Obviously, if a team is just not guarding you 25 feet from the basket and there's not a defender within 18 feet of you, you got to take that shot. I get that. But in those games where he sort of felt it out, he didn't force anything, and a lot of people in this media and a lot of people in this fan base calling him out and calling him not aggressive, not assertive, not a real superstar. Who's the real superstar? Well, clearly Pascal Siakam, you know, Fred VanVleet. These guys are going to take a lot of dare shots, and, you know, if they've got one defender on them, they don't mind going to 2-3 defenders. We call that aggressive. Well, here's my question, Raptor fans. Was Nikola Jokic not aggressive enough for you in the first half? It's completely, maybe it's because it's social media, but it is a completely unprecedented level of humility that we are seeing from a guy who won't even accept that he's the best player on his own team. What was his response to that? Oh, well, you know, some nights it's Jamal, some nights it's somebody else. Nobody's the best player on every single night. I love that. I love that. The amount of respect he shows to other people, it's not him being coy. He really believes, you know, he's said this multiple times, Jamal Murray's been the best player for us in the playoffs. Meanwhile, the rest of us are watching this like, dude, you might be in the argument for greatest players of all time right now. What are we talking about? This could be the greatest playoff series by a player in 5-6 years now. And he won't even concede that he's the best player on his own team. Very interesting to learn from Michael Porter Jr. how he handled all the backlash about MVP, right? How Kendrick Perkins said he was a stat padder, which should probably be retired as one of the worst takes in the history of sports. Just the least stat padding guy ever. There's such a big gap between how he gets triple doubles and how Pascal, Fred, how these guys got their numbers, or Russell Westbrook for that matter. Just takes everything easy. And how he said, Porter Jr. said, just didn't bother him, didn't faze him, didn't take it like anybody else. Mike Malone's message to his team before the game. This is a Heat team that is dangerous. It's a dangerous team. They beat the opponent unsuspecting. Everyone looks at the lines. They expect this team to just come out, not be able to score, not be able to shoot threes. Bam's too small. And somehow they just keep gutting out these wins, and they keep surprising people. Well, Mike Malone ends that. He says, nope, not going to happen tonight. They're not going to win in Denver. Look, there's a lot of excuses. If the Denver Nuggets come out and lose this game, well, okay, the Heat have known for 11 days who they were going to face. The Denver Nuggets found out 2 days ago who they were going to face. The Heat are better tuned up. The Nuggets could make a case that they're rusty. You know, they could have come out slow. They could have definitely come out slow, but they didn't. And I think it starts with culture. I think it starts with coaching, and I think it starts with leadership. There's not a lot that Miami can do right now. I hope you realize that. When I was watching Nikola Jokic in the fourth quarter, hitting effortless, like not even breaking a sweat, fadeaways over Bam Adebayo, who, by the way, legitimately believes that he is the defensive player of the year every year. He thinks he's the best defender in the league. He thought he should have won it this year. He thought he should have won it the previous year. He's shooting over him like he's not even there. This is not a positional mismatch. They're both technically point centers. Just, you know, the 2 inches, the extra weight, the extra skill. physically, when you look at these two players, Bam Adebayo should be the much better player. He should be able to contest them, but he can't. He can't. I don't think Nikola Jokic has left the ground by more than 4 inches all playoffs, but he cannot be stopped. Does the cerebral part, the mental part of the game, take so much precedence over all of the physical advantages that guys like Rob Williams, sorry, not Rob Williams, but DeAndre Ayton and Bam Adebayo would have had over Nikola Jokic? Is the mental advantage just that much? I think when you see what's happened with the Boston Celtics, granted, Jason Tatum injured on the first play, I think when you see all the turmoil, everything that went on with that team this year, you realize the talent does not always win out. That has always been the point with this fan base, with the Raptors fan base. Oh, we need more talent. We need guys who can break guys off the bounce. And right now, that seems to be everything that Boston Celtic fans are talking about. Oh, we still don't have a guard who can break down the defense. Well, you have Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Marcus Smart. That's a pretty damn good guard rotation. You got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. You still need more. Malcolm Brogdon. You still need more. What's the point? Culture. Jaylen Brown bitching all year, and valid, by the way. Oh, I'm getting traded. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ty. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. The culture is set by your leaders. Jaylen Brown is unfortunately a leader in Boston. Did you catch his post game? I don't mean to throw shade at that guy, but I think he had 8 turnovers in Game 7. He was abysmal. He just mentally checked out. And I'm sorry, this has happened one too many times with that dude. But where is his brain right now? Is his brain on his next contract? Well, I don't blame him. $295 million over 5 years is that's a lot of money. I've never touched 250th of that, 270th of that. I have no idea what that's not life-changing money. That's fuck you money, right? That's my entire lineage has changed forever. And you're going to take $60 million away from me when I've been underpaid? I get it. One of the, let's call it, the biggest misconceptions is that you can aim in 2 places at once and still end up somewhere coherent. You cannot. Kawhi Leonard did not come here to stat pad. He came here to win a championship. Kyle Lowry that year didn't mind deferring. OG Anunoby didn't sulk about coming off the bench. Pascal Siakam, nobody sulked. Because everybody had one goal. And that's what happened. It worked. Do you remember some of the teams that the Raptors faced that year? Can you honestly tell me that you believe that the Raptors, despite Kawhi's brilliance, were more talented than the Philadelphia 76ers that year? With Jimmy Butler and in his prime Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, like that was considered unbeatable by many people. That team was amazing. Jimmy was on his way out. Coach was on his way out. A little bit of infighting about what to do with the offense. This is what derails championships. I think what the Heat and the Denver Nuggets are showing you is that culture wins. That a winning culture starts with a coach and a player who are on the same page, a star player. If you have multiple star players, that would include Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. Now, how the hell do you believe that Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., who have missed an incredible amount of time with injuries, would have felt if Nikola Jokic had walked out in one of those seasons where he was carrying the Nuggets and said, well, I think we need to make some changes. I wish I had more durable teammates. Well, now you just threw everybody under the bus to save yourself, didn't you? Jimmy Butler is not egoless. He has an ego. James Welsh made a really good point the other day. He definitely has an ego. But he is selfless. It is completely possible to be so humble that it's almost off-putting, like Nikola Jokic, where like you are literally looking at this guy like, are you aware of how fucking good you are? It's possible to be that humble, that you are so delusional to the extreme that you cannot even concede that you are by far, not just the best player in the Western Conference, not just the best player on your own team, not just the best player in the playoffs, but literally like possibly on par with some of the greatest players to ever do it. And you can't see that. And then there's Jimmy Butler, you know, who thinks he deserves a lot. He deserves a lot of credit. He deserves a lot of respect. He believes he's underrated. Privately, he would share these thoughts with you. I am positive. But he cares about his teammates. He doesn't throw them under the bus. He doesn't call them by diminutive names. He doesn't say, oh, well, if I had better teammates, we could make it further because I'm great. Didn't do that. You have leaders in place and coaches in place who are not consistently throwing their team under the bus. You know how I knew, and I put my money where my mouth is on this bet, even though I was rooting for the Celtics. Do you know how I knew the Miami Heat were going to win in Boston? Which is, by the way, if you saw the line on that, the odds were definitely against them, just as they were all year. Because I saw Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra's post-game. And what did Spo said? What did Spo say? He said, I wish we could play the next game in an hour. And he meant it. That's probably what he just said to his team. And he meant it. He wanted it. There was no hanging of the head. What did Jimmy Butler say? We are going to get this done in Boston. It's going to be fine. What did the organization say? Let's book your flights to Denver before we even play this game. There was no hanging of the head. You know, a lot of teams, they choke a game like the one that the Heat lost in Game 6. After all the pressure is now flipped on them, somehow being the underdogs, they are about to become the first team to blow a 3-0 lead. No pressure on the Celtics. Everyone expected them to lose after they went down 0-3. And somehow, this team just bounces back. What is that? That's culture. That's culture and leadership. And that is leaders who don't break. They don't shake. There's so much in common between Jimmy Butler and Nikola Jokic. They're so different and so freaking common. It is ridiculous. You almost cannot think of two players. They're both outside the box thinkers. I adore both of them. Both of them are like two of my 6 favorite players in the NBA. I always love these types of players. So I'm in heaven right now. I'm watching two players that I have supported for years, loved for years, fighting it out for the chance to win a championship for the first time. This is like, I don't want to say this is as good as having the Raptors in the playoffs. Obviously, I would love to see the Raptors in the finals. Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, whatever. But this is close. It's really close. Just this two combination of these two teams, because it's proof that you can't just cheat your way, trade 80,000 picks. You can't just do that and get it to the finals. You can't. Well, I mean, you have been able to. Sure. I find it remarkable that this is the second time, I believe, in 15 years that the Miami Heat are about to change everything. Y'all remember I'm taking my talents to South Beach? That was the first time the Miami Heat changed everything. For the next 8 to 9 years, all you saw was watered down wannabe versions of the Heatles. Every team wanted 3 guys, right? I mean, you can make a case the Boston Celtics really created it, but it was unheard of to have 3 guys in their primes join up like that. And right now they're about to do it for the exact opposite reason. Because for the second time in 4 years, the Miami Heat, not in the bubble this time, are for real about to go to the NBA Finals with Jimmy Butler and a ragtag group of undrafted dudes. The faces have changed a little bit. Yes. Cody Martin. Oh, yes. Sorry, Caleb Martin. That is how irrelevant he was coming into this series that I could not even remember for the life of me which Martin twin was on which team. That's crazy to say. I know a lot about the NBA, and sometimes I just forget. Do you know that a year prior, he had 0 points? A year later, he led the team in minutes and probably rightfully should have won Western Conference MVP. He was incredible. He outplayed Jaylen Brown handily. That's Heat culture. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. coming in and actually trying on defense is Nuggets culture. Being selfless is Nuggets culture. Aaron Gordon completely sacrificing himself offensively to fit in and really commit to becoming a completely different type of player. That's Nuggets culture. This Christian Brown, I have been so impressed by this dude. I was not a fan at the draft. But you see Vlatko Konchar, you see Christian Brown, you see so many of these guys, Gabe Vincent. These are two organizations that are doing it the right way. Look at how long those cores have been together. Really, the core in Miami is Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, and Jimmy Butler at this point. They have some faces. Yeah, Tyler Hero's been there for a while. Duncan Robinson's been there for a while, But this continuity, building the right habits, holding people accountable, this works. Trading 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks for a superstar, which is what the Phoenix Suns didn't work. No, the homegrown second-round pick turned MVP, and the 30th overall pick, who was once homeless and has been moved between 4 different teams, is on his 4th team. 2 guys who've taken very different paths to get to this point are at this point. And I think it proves that culture wins. San Antonio proved it. Detroit proved it. Miami's proved it multiple times. Dallas has proved it. Golden State has proved it. Everyone looks at the most obvious variable, which is, they have a superstar. But what have they built around that superstar? Because I assure you that the number of times a superstar has not won an NBA championship far outnumbers the number of times they have. It's possible to build a championship contender around Carmelo Anthony. Does that statement ring true? I don't know. Maybe it matters what kind of superstar. Maybe we need to start differentiating between, guy who puts up 30 points, guy who grabs big rebounds and assists, but isn't really about the right stuff, doesn't really care about winning enough, cares more about himself. Maybe those guys don't win because winning isn't the main goal for them. I don't ever have to question if Jason Tatum cares about winning. I know that guy cares about winning, and that's why I'm so optimistic about the Boston Celtics. I don't have to worry about Scotty Barnes cares about winning. I know he cares about winning. He'd be happier with 0 points in a win than 50 points in a loss 10 times out of 10. That's how you can build around that guy. At the end of the day, you can never guarantee yourself a championship. You can try, but you will never guarantee yourself a championship. Granted, it was due to injuries, but the Golden State Warriors did lose, even with KD. The unbeatable team did lose in the finals. Okay? The Miami Heat, with their big 3 that was supposed to win not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. Yeah, they won 2. They won 2. And they lost twice. You cannot guarantee yourself a championship. What you can hopefully guarantee yourself is a chance. A chance. Every single year. That's what I think you have when you have the right culture, the right coach, the right star. Start thinking about it in that terms. The right star. Now let's take a bit of time here. Today, obviously, we have not talked in a while. We have not talked since the Boston Celtics lost. We have also not talked since Nick Nurse accepted the job with Philadelphia. So we're going to take a brief look, because I know that this channel is mainly a Raptors channel, and I'm assuming there's a lot of Raptor fans here. We're going to look at what Nick Nurse said, and I'm going to grab some coffee here. All right.
First of all, communication and relationships is the key to doing this job really well, right? And always communicate directly with the players on anything. If there's issues, or if there's schemes, or if there's improvement areas, or anything, be very direct and handle that kind of stuff one-on-one, face-to-face, sometimes in team setting. Communication is the key to being a successful head coach, and we'll continue to do that here.
Dan Gelston, the Associated Press. How you doing, Nick? You said you've been in this trenches with this team, but there's been something that hasn't quite been unlocked that's been able to get it past the second round. What do you feel that's been missing that you see when you're on the other side, and what do you feel you can bring to unlock that? How will you unlock that?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought on that is this team could be playing tonight, right? I think that along with some others in the Eastern Conference that probably are wishing they were getting ready to throw the ball up tonight, and that combination of staying healthy, the ball bouncing your way, figuring out the long grind that it is to go from the start of the playoffs to winning a title, all those things, are very difficult. Like, you gotta be able to do all that stuff. And as far as the rest of it, I look at it like this way. I don't really vibrate on the frequency of the past. Like, to me, when we get a chance to start and dig into this thing a little bit, it's going to be only focused on what we're trying to do going forward. That doesn't matter. Next season, whatever's happened for the last whatever years, doesn't matter to me. And it's similar to Toronto a little bit, right? That be kind of a clean slate for me. Just looking forward to how we can get it done from start to finish.
Hey, Nick, Gina Mizell from the Philadelphia Inquirer as well. Good to see you. For both you and Daryl, you mentioned that you guys have a history together, obviously. Just can you take us back to when you guys first worked together with the Rockets organization in Rio Grande, maybe what that was like, and then why it made sense to reunite, basically a decade later?
Well, for me, I was coaching the Iowa Energy at the time in the old D League, now the G League. As my home state, but I was interested in going to work with Daryl once we started talking. I mean, there was a lot of kind of analytical things, innovative ideas, etc., and that kind of really triggered me. I thought it'd be a chance for me to grow as a coach, and I can just remember some of the things leading in there. It was like that, use that as like a laboratory. We're going to try this and try that, and I think that was kind of what I've been doing. Some of the other places I've been coaching, just trying things, and when they work, we kind of keep them in our toolbox, and when they don't work, we crumple them up and get rid of them right away. But he encouraged innovation and creativity and trying to find a better way to do things, and that's what triggered me to go there originally. Yeah.
I think just thinking back at that time, we were looking for a lot of what we're looking for now in this search, which is a partner who you can define an objective and say, use their creative basketball mind to see how to achieve that, whether it be certain tactical things on the floor or certain ways to construct a roster that obviously everyone's fighting for the same, cap, tax type resources where you have to fit everything in. Great coaches can help you unlock players that maybe can create value that other teams don't see or can't unlock, and that's the key. It's like, how do you get these players who can help in a partnership with the front office and the coach to achieve a greater objective.
All right, enough of that. Here's the thing: as much as I wouldn't call it a numbers guy, I'm a numbers guy. First of all, I just want to give a quick shout out. Y'all see my shirt? Yo, you see that? I never wore this shirt before in my life. This is the first time I'm wearing this shirt. Big shout out to Bears of Valor. Follow them on Facebook or Instagram. Sorry, I'm doing a terrible job here. Mike Kuo, who is a community member here, he does some of those shirts, and he asked me if I wanted one, and I was like, yo, I'll give you a shout out on the live, and definitely send me one of these Scotty Barnes shirts. So yeah, be great for. It's very awesome. I'm very happy to support, get into a lot of coaching questions and Raptor questions. I just want to lay out first my thoughts. I'm sorry I'm bouncing a little bit around some ideas here. It's going to be a little bit difficult to follow. But I just want to complete my thoughts on the Heat and the Nuggets and what I think is going to happen in this series and where I think, really the holes are for either side. And I'll give you my prediction on what I think is going to happen in this series. And then from there, we will talk a little bit of Raptors. The lines are open. If you want to talk, we can talk. Okay. On Andre Lindo asking, where do I get that shirt? Check Instagram, Bears of Valor, all one word. Just check it out. I think they have a website there. Valor is spelled Valor. Bears of Valor, all one word. Right. I don't think this is a particularly close thing, but I do believe that people who think that it's going to be a sweep, chill. Right. The Miami Heat have a lot going for them here. Right. They do have, in my opinion, the better perimeter creator. Granted, he's not a perfect player in Jimmy Butler, but they have shown that. I think they have a better coach. I think these are two of the best 4 coaches in the NBA, but I think Eric Spoelstra has demonstrated to me over the last 7-8 years that he is just a fantastic coach. And they will make adjustments and they will figure it out. Okay, I don't expect them to make the same mistake 150 times over and over. I don't expect them to beat themselves. I do believe that the altitude is an issue. I really do. Like, we've never seen the Denver Nuggets in the finals. So first off, kudos to that. As a Raptor fan base, we understand what it's like to be finals virgins. It's pretty cool, actually. But I think that it's important to just sort of reel back and just realize that, hey, like, this is going to be an adjustment. No matter how much you train for this, no matter what you do, like, short jumpers, tired legs, this is going to happen. The problem is, the minute you adjust, you're going right back to Miami. It doesn't give you enough time. And, you know, an extended playoff series there is always going to be difficult, but they are possible to beat. Obviously, they've lost many times. Teams have figured it out. But I think that's going to hurt, because one of the big swings for the Miami Heat so far, and the big difference in terms of just how they've been able to turn around the regular season to the playoffs, is that they're hitting more shots. I'm going to take a quick look. I mean, they kind of did the Raptors thing tonight, right? Like, they just took way more shots than the opponent, right? So, I mean, it wasn't as close a game. If you didn't watch the game, it wasn't that close. I mean, they won the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, and then they basically let scrubs run up the score in the fourth quarter. So it wasn't a blowout, but it was a blowout. Like, if they wanted to blow this team out, they could have blown this team out, and they did so while taking 17 fewer shots, which is honestly hard to do. Yeah, you can say the Miami Heat just missed a lot of shots, just like we can say the Boston Celtics missed a lot of shots. No, it's not simply missing a lot of shots. I mean, there's things that teams are doing, deterring, you know, your first action and pushing you into more uncomfortable shots, closing out to your stronger hand, being more disciplined and aggressive on those closeouts, just small hustle stuff that we always talk about. I think that these are really important things, and, you know, they can contribute to a team having an awful series shooting, right? Like, the Boston Celtics had some of their worst shooting against the Miami Heat. Now, a lot has been made about Denver's defense, because apparently Nikola Jokic is the worst defender in league history, and that's why Joel Embiid won the MVP. Yes, I'm still salty. I'm really still pissed off about that, because winning 3 in a row, you don't know how long someone's prime is. You don't know that he's definitely going to be, you know, at this level forever. So you basically took an MVP away from somebody that rightfully won it. It pisses me off. It's pissed me off every single time it's ever happened, including, ironically, when it happened with Steve Nash, in my opinion. I don't think he deserved those MVPs, and it just feels like, since we use these accolades and these awards, which Nikola Jokic clearly doesn't care about, Jimmy Butler doesn't seem to care about, these guys don't care about this stuff. But at the end of the day, like, you're having a GOAT debate, and everything comes down to rings and MVPs and all NBAs and all this stuff. And yeah, the championship rings are valid. But those MVPs, they count, right? Those numbers count. The MVPs count. The finals MVPs count. All this stuff counts when we're stacking up greatest whatever. And, you know, yes, one day I would like to be able to say that Nikola Jokic is one of the 2 greatest centers of all time. I would like to have that Shaq versus Jokic debate at some point. And I think he's a much better defender than people give him credit for. Much better defender. Like, so many things that he does where his intelligence just wins out, even though, yeah, he's giving up some ridiculous percentages at the rim. But there's stuff like where he'll come out to a shooter, he'll close on a guard, and he'll swipe down at them. Like, he does things to make himself effective. The Nuggets are a good defensive team with him on the court. They have been all year. But yeah, you're going to isolate this one specific thing that he doesn't do very well. He's still a incredibly large human being. You're not moving him on the post. You're never going to shoot over him, like in the sense that he's too small to contest your shot. He's just sometimes a little bit too directionally challenged. I think the Nuggets are doing a great job of hiding that. Honestly, if I could put every ounce, every dollar that I owned onto the Nuggets, if I was a compulsive gambler, I would. I don't think there's a chance in this series. I think the line's reflected, and I think after today, it's going to be even more reflected. I think the Nuggets are like, I don't know, 450 favorites. Like, it was crazy. So you have to bet, I think, $450 to make $100. Like, that's, for a finals, that's very lopsided. Very lopsided. Usually don't see that. I think that's the kind of line you were expecting with the New Jersey Nets versus the Los Angeles Lakers when they met in the finals in the early 2000s. Like that, it's so obvious that one team is just outclassed. But I think the Heat do stuff that's good. You know, I think they have a chance, and I don't know what that team's going to look like with Tyler Hero back. I'm assuming they're going to be worse defensively, but I think they could do some stuff. My prediction, I think the Nuggets win 4-1. I think the Heat will get probably game 3. You know, Greg Popovich used to talk a lot about appropriate fear. You know, commanding. To be honest, Joe Rogan talks about appropriate fear a lot too, in different words. And a lot of this comes down to military and martial arts training. When you train in military and you train in martial arts, there is never an advantage to underestimating your opponent. Ever. And it could be lethal. You could die. So there's always a healthy amount of respect to someone that you step in the ring with or someone you go to war with. And I think that that is probably the right attitude to take towards basketball. Appropriate fear. Any team could beat you on any given night. And I think that that's true. Any team can come back from a 20-point deficit. That is true. It keeps you on guard. It forces you to not beat yourself. I don't think either one of these teams are going to beat themselves. I think the Boston Celtics beat themselves a couple of times, including Game 7. I think there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds. I think the Raptors beat themselves at least 25 times this year. I think they did. Maybe 20 times, around there. I think this could have been, you know, a 55, 56 win team if they had just stopped beating themselves. And that's hard for people to understand, you know, because they were a 41 win team. 15 win gap because of self-inflicted wounds? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's how I feel. I don't think either of these teams are going to beat themselves. At which point, what can my best guy do? What can you take away from it? There's nothing, absolutely nothing they can do to stop Nikola Jokic. He's too good. He's too good a passer. He's too good a playmaker. He's too good a scorer. And I don't think they have the types of defenders they would need to stop him. I don't think they have the size to stop him. And I think it really puts into new perspective just how rare and incredible it is that Scotty Barnes, as a rookie, held him to 0 points in a fourth quarter where he was actually trying to score. It takes a very unique set of defenders to stop someone like Nikola Jokic. Ironically, I think the Raptors had the personnel to make a very complicated series for someone like that. They could send long, rangy, athletic guys from 3-4 different angles at different times. Like, it can get somewhat chaotic even for a super genius like him. The Miami Heat are playing undersized guys. They're playing Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry at this stage. None of these guys are great defenders. And I think that, you know, you can only go so far with the talent you have. I think this will not really get better with Tyler Hero coming back. You're not going to be better offensively than the Denver Nuggets. And this sort of symbiotic relationship between offense and defense that we talked about all year with the Raptors, truth be told, like, how many times have we seen the Heat get a stop or the Celtics just miss a terrible shot, or Jaylen Brown turns the ball over and the Heat are going the other way, and it's Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson popping up above the break or in the corner for a three, and then suddenly the momentum shifts. And, you know, one of the greatest things you can do as an offense for your defense is just not turn the ball over and get easy, good shots, you know, that don't result in super long rebounds. which usually means make your freaking shots. So they go through the net and the other team has to take it out. It just saves you so much, right? Because cross-matching with a defender like Jokic and a defender like Jamal Murray on the same team, if the Nuggets are not great offensively, they will lose this series, 100%. But they are great offensively, and you're not going to beat them on offense, and you can't do enough on defense to stop their main guy. Sometimes it just comes down to that, right? You just don't have what it takes to beat this team. That might be sad to hear for some people who want to see Kyle Lowry get his second ring. That might be sad for Jimmy Butler fans. It might be sad for Miami Heat fans who tune into this. But this is not Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown we're talking about here. This is not, DeAndre Ayton, right? Like, this is a team, the Denver Nuggets, that have talked about nothing but championship all year. You're just looking at a much better version of yourselves, really, at this point. I worried about the defense, but the defense only becomes an issue if the other team has the offense. And I think the Nuggets held up defensively competently tonight. Take a look at the box score here. The Denver Nuggets really balanced attack, right? Nikola Jokic didn't force anything. He took 12 shots, man. He took 12 shots and managed 27 points, 14 assists, and 10 rebounds. Granted, he played 40 minutes, right? But they're so rested right now. They're so incredibly rested. And, they're getting valuable contributions off the bench. I think Brown's minutes were interesting. I didn't necessarily agree with it, but I get it. I get giving a guy who's clearly about the right stuff and is going to be a fantastic player in the NBA some run, some finals experience. I think he's going to be a really big part of what they do going forward. He's built for that team. I think it'd be really interesting to, eventually what they have with Vlatko Konchar and like Peyton Watson and just some of the guys that they have on that team. It's a deep team, right? Bruce Brown, again, just fantastic. You can easily interchange him with the starters in place of KCP. I think it's just a really balanced team. You're really not going to do too much to stop them. Really, the only way that I see the Miami Heat winning this series is an injury, like a massive injury. Like it would have to be one of like Jamal Murray, touch wood, Nikola Jokic, or Porter, or Aaron Gordon. Like it would have to be a serious injury. It wouldn't be just a nick and bruise, right? For the Miami Heat, no real pressing here. Bam Adebayo had it going early, really matched Jokic a lot of the way through, just kind of statistically looked like, but you just look at the difference here, 25 shot attempts, no free throw attempts, not really stopping. And again, like, you're playing so many minutes here. Martin just really, it seems like the scouting report is out on him. People aren't relaxing right now. 25 minutes, 3 points, not really what you needed. Max Strus, 0 for 9 from 3. Like, yeah, like that's not going to happen again. Fine, I get it. But give the Nuggets credit too, right? Duncan Robinson, 1 for 5. Like, who had Max Strus and Duncan Robinson combined go 1 for 14 from 3? I really like what I've seen from Highsmith so far. Every single time he's been in the game, he's made a positive impact. I've been really impressed with him. And, Kyle Lowry, just veteran experience. Like, look, one of the biggest predictors of playoff success is playoff experience. And they have a guy who has really been in the trenches of some very deep playoff runs with Toronto. I think he will stabilize that team. And I really like the Heat tempo when he's on the court. I think this is just physics. I think this is just coming down to one team is just definitively way more talented than the other. And look, I don't think the Nuggets really pressed a lot during the regular season to try and, win as many games as they could. I think they had a really rough part, but there were stretches of the season where they were on pace to be a 62-63 win team. And I think they easily, if they were pushing for that instead of a championship, I think they could have easily done it. I think this is one of the better teams to make it to the finals in a few years now. I think the Nuggets probably would have whooped either the Golden State Warriors or the Boston Celtics last year in the finals. I really believe that. I believe a healthy Nuggets team is a really scary proposition for this league. And you just never know when you're at the beginning of something or at the end of something. You just never know. And that's something that I've learned a lot through my life, which is you never know what place of the entire picture you're actually witnessing when you're witnessing it. Massive injury to one of the Nuggets' core players right now, and this is the last time you see the Nuggets in the finals for the rest of Jokic's career. So enjoy it. Or this is, about to be the start of something. I mean, you got 3 guys all in their mid-20s, early 20s, mid-20s, all on max contracts, signed up long-term, like playing with each other, no ego, no issues. You got a superstar who basically defers to all his teammates and calls them better than him. You've got a great coach and a great coaching staff, which we'll definitely talk about David Adelman at some point in this show. And you have the sustainable roots and a lot of young players coming up, from Christian Brown to Peyton Watson, who I still love. I'm going to hold out hope for Peyton Watson. And a lot of young players like Vlatko Koncharov. He's a really good player. Like I know that you probably don't spend a lot of time watching Nuggets games, but I do. You never know. This could be a run of 5 championships, or it could be the last time Nuggets are in the finals. But one thing is for sure, they have done this the right way. I think it's something that other teams should model themselves after. I think there's a lot to take away, and I think in a lot of ways they're the anti-Raptors in so many ways. In how they play, in how they think, in how they talk. There's a toughness to this team, both teams. So I wish them both luck. And I know they both cannot win. But I hope they both stay healthy so that we don't have to talk about injuries the whole time. Now we're going to take a brief detour here where we listen to Eric Spoelstra talk about his team's loss while I go drink some water and clear out my throat here.
Ideally you would think, you hope you do the right things, that thing just bounced a different way. That's the only place it could have bounced to hurt us. I thought we had a lot of things covered on that play, and that sometimes things just don't break your way. I don't think there's any regrets on that. It's just a shame, But look, this is the way this season's been. This is a one hell of a series. At this time right now, I don't know how we're going to get this done, but we're going to go up there and get it done. And that's what the next 48 hours is about. There's been nothing easy about this season for our group, and so we just have to do it the hard way. And that's just the way it's got to be, for our group. And we wish we could tip this thing off right now. Right now, we want to tip this thing off, and let's play another 48 minutes, but we'll wait 48 hours and do this thing in Boston.
Spo, on a night that not a lot of shots were falling for Jimmy, what did he show you and what he was able to do down the stretch to give you guys a shot?
Yeah, just a competitive will. A lot of things weren't going for us offensively. You do have to credit Boston. They jammed us up, and it looked like at one point, and we were in the 80s, but this group has a competitive will and a competitive want to win that is up there with any team I've ever coached. And we were down 10, and our guys just feel perfectly normal in that kind of scenario. Made a bunch of plays. We got some timely defensive stops, and Jimmy drew a couple fouls, and then that one right there, you just think, the basketball gods, things are going to go in your favor, but it doesn't always work out your way. So then you got to do it the hard way. And it's a 7-game series. There's nothing better than Game 7s.
Spo, to follow up on what you just touched on, you have praised this team's competitive will repeatedly throughout the postseason. How do you get them over the emotional hurdle of losing in literally the last second of the game?
I mean, I feel like we've had more practice with that than anybody. We've had more buzzer beaters against us this year. I mean, it's just been crazy. That's why when we say for the national media that hasn't been following us, and we didn't expect you to follow us, when we say we did it the hard way, there are some bone-crushing losses where we did the right things, and then last-second shots, just for the wins against us. And the competitive spirit of this group was we're never to be denied. Even after games like that, we'd always come back the next game and find a way to get a win. And that's what we have to do right now. At 11:35 right now, I have no idea how we're going to get this done. I'm, was shocked.
Oh my God, I apologize. I just saw the, I'm gonna have to clip that out. My bad. I apologize. I just downloaded it. I should have watched it. My bad. Okay, so moving on to the Raptors coaching search. Monty Williams has been hired by the Detroit Pistons. They paid an exorbitant amount of money. Nick Nurse has been scooped up. The East is reshuffling. And some very good coaches, right? If you consider Adrian Griffin, I was listening to the mismatch today, and they compared Adrian Griffin to Ime Udoka. A lot of parallels there. Very well regarded, right? TR Mike saying, yes, a shout out again to Bears of Valor. Mike here is the guy behind Bears of Valor, which is why he's saying that. That's cool. Thank you so much. Ranga's saying, do you notice the difference though? Spo actually tells the truth. I agree. That is a really refreshing thing. He doesn't fluff around, and I really appreciate that about him. He keeps it direct, and you can tell that's really the long range, how he's maintained relationships with people for so long, right? He doesn't burn people out because he doesn't gaslight people. He doesn't lie to people. He's a very honest, decent human being. Which got me thinking a lot about who's left in the heat for the Raptors. Now, I will tell you that somebody... no, I'm not allowed to say that. There have been some rumors. Let's just put it that way. There have been some rumors that Steve Nash is the guy. And I would be very upset with that, to be honest. I really would. I don't love what he did in Brooklyn. It's not like he was a complete failure. Obviously, there are some young guys who have developed there, under him. Can make a case, that if KD's foot is a little bit, like an inch behind, they might have won a championship that year. You don't know, right? A lot to deal with Kyrie. Maybe. Let's not judge Steve Nash until you see his second situation. I personally don't want that situation here. I don't want to recycle coaches. Maybe it's my own feeling about this. Maybe it's a desire to have a new face, a new voice, someone to get a first chance. But I really like some of these assistants that are available, specifically Jordy Fernandez, specifically David Adelman, right? Darko. I mean, and let's not forget about Sergio, right? He is 62. I'm not being ageist. I just think that there could be an issue with connecting to certain players when you're that much older, but I don't think he will have any issues at all. I love what he's done with the Spanish League program. I love his work in Italy, and I loved his work with the Raptors. Like, he was always just such a coherent and nice guy to listen to. And very recently in English, and if you Google it, you can definitely find it. It's like a 2-hour, coaching session with him where he's coaching these people, and he's just teaching you, like, you get to go through the ins and outs of how he's running plays and how he's training these players. And it's just you try to imagine it. I've never met him, so you just sort of have to imagine it. None of us have seen him coach in the NBA. Again, you just have to imagine it. What's it going to be like in the huddle? What's the messaging? What's his mental makeup like? A lot of people talk about the distinction between an X's and O's coach and a player's coach. At the end of the day, honestly, you need both. You can't just be one. Sure, some guys are going to have a skill that is going to lean more favorably into relationship building, motivation, getting guys ready. Dwayne Casey comes to mind, right? And those guys can be great at building culture. But then those guys, eventually, if they do not demonstrate a competence when it comes to basketball, and that doesn't mean they have to come up with all the answers. That just means they need to know who to ask, right? If they have a lead assistant who is just a brilliant lead assistant who can implement the greatest offense ever for them, great. They knew that they needed that guy, and they got him. If they have a lead assistant who can coordinate their entire defensive attack and they can come up with these incredibly creative, well, that's Nick Nurse in a nutshell, isn't it? A defensive, offensive genius. But what about that other side? That relationship side? That situational side? Because things always go wrong, don't they? They always go wrong. Something always happens. A play always gets botched. Someone misses a rotation. The other team hits a miracle shot and goes to overtime. And now you got to manage the emotions of 15 to 17 guys. Well, more likely you have to manage the emotions of 5, 6 guys. And what you say matters. Because as I said earlier, you cannot focus on 2 things at once. Right? You start dwelling on the past. You start ruminating on, oh, well, we should have had this. Well, now you are spiraling your team into a negative mindset. You start calling players out for shit and you're not calling out other players. Well, now you are evoking thoughts of like almost conspiratorial thoughts within your organization. You're creating factions. Really, you're creating divides. When I say, my grandmother used to say, like, if you at all points you are doing one of 2 things. You are either bringing the world closer, you're bringing the world further apart, and that's on you. That's what you're doing. That's your messaging, right? That's your messaging. That's your ethos. That's, your verbiage. That's your emotional regulation. I like Jordi Fernandez. Every time I think about everything that is relevant to me in a basketball coach, I always come back to Jordi. I don't know why. Even when I was on my give Becky a chance, but I always kept it to, but also Jordi. When I was like, yo, David Adelman, he's been great. Yeah, but what about Jordi? Monty'd be cool, but what about Jordi? I've been with this guy like the entire way through. He's the first coach that I mentioned, and maybe it's anchoring bias. I don't know. But there is just something about the way that he communicates that just feels right to me. Jason Chow. Ranga said, would you say that player coaches are better at developing players than X's and O's coaches? No, I wouldn't. Is Eric Spoelstra a player's coach or an X's and O's coach? Is Greg Popovich a player's coach or an X's and O's coach? I think you would argue that they're both extremely competent in both regards, right? Is Rick Carlisle more of an X's and O's coach? Yes. Is Tyrese Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard, are they both going to develop under him? Absolutely, right? I think you definitely need both. But most importantly, I think you need a good human being. I know that sounds very cliche, but I have always believed that people who are in the right environment learn better. So much of, emotional regulation, emotional management, there's stories that you hear about from players, this ex-coach, whatever, this is what he did to me, and you shocked. You're like, wow, that happens in a professional league? That's crazy. Where a coach won't talk to a player because he's upset with him or he didn't want him on the team in the first place. He just won't talk to that guy for like the entire season. Just doesn't say words to him. That's supposed to bring your team together. That's just pettiness. I don't want petty coaches. I want coaches who are grown-ups. I want coaches who are good at building relationships. I want coaches who understand the long-term vision and the short-term vision. Again, it comes down to emotional regulation, buying into the plan, being on the same page. The problem right now, if you're the Toronto Raptors, in terms of hiring a coach, is you're not really sure yourselves which way you're going. And I think a lot of that comes down to the decision to keep or let go of Fred VanVleet. Emerging rumors, he's a possible target for Philly. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Obviously, a month ago, I was like, no, you can't afford to lose this guy for nothing. But Kevin O'Connor, Brian Windhorst, talking very openly that the Raptors are divided. They don't know. They're going tank, or they're going rebuild, or they're going, oh, we're going to try to run it back and contend. You got Jakob Poeltl. You want to bring him back? Okay. You got Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam. Is he going to be worth what he's going to command? We'll see. Fred VanVleet, he's got him by the balls. Yeah, there's a lot of what-ifism right now, and If you go one way or the other way, you don't really know. And maybe which way you want to go changes which coach you want to bring on. Maybe a younger coach is better. Maybe someone like, I think it's just connection matters, Mike Malone took a real interest, like a serious interest in Nikola Jokic early in his career. I can't remember who the player was or the agent was, but there's somebody who told Nikola Jokic, like in 2016 or 17, and he was flashing some early potential, that said, you could be MVP, you could be the best player in the league. And Nikola Jokic always talks about that moment as like, he was the first guy who said it, and it just kind of, it changed something. I thought about it for like, wow, me, really? He didn't even think he was going to be in the NBA. I think that's important, like having these people around you who can create a better vision for your future than you see for yourself. I think that that'd be important for Scotty. So my priority with this, obviously, is someone who's great at building relationships, but also someone who can connect to Scotty Barnes, right? I think it's really important. Connect with Scotty, connect with Christian Coloco, connect with, and I think, again, when, this question, when you say player coaches are developing, X's and O's, I think good ideas work and bad ideas flop in the NBA, I think egos flop. I think humility works. There's a set of like values and attributes that I think consistently over time have shown to be effective at developing players. Building relationships helps, but also being smart enough to admit when you're wrong helps. So I guess humility helps, but also telling the guy the right things so that he doesn't have a massive distrust on your basketball acumen, because how much time is lost in the, well, what does he know? I'm going to do it my way, mentality. If Nick Nurse says something to you, it would really help if he had the kind of relationship and credibility with you that you just kind of took him at face value. If there was a trust there. So I think that relationship element, trust, ability to sort of nurture people's egos, speak to people in the way they need to be spoken to. People have unique traumas, unique triggers, unique learning patterns. You need a person who can connect those things. Then there's egos, obviously, when things happen. You need people who have quick thinking. There's so many attributes that go into the type of coach that wins the amount of respect needed from his players so that the things that he is asking them to do can nurture or can lead to development. That makes sense? Like if Nick Nurse goes to Scotty Barnes and says, hey, like this game, we're going to run you in the pinch post. We're going to do this for you, that for you. Or if he tells him, hey, this off season, I need you to cut out sugar. I need you to cut out sugar completely. No more Frosted Flakes, no more whatever. I need you to, run 20 miles a day. I need you to do these things. Like, it would really help if Scotty just had the kind of faith in him to be like, this guy would never steer me wrong. You know what I mean? But it would also help if that guy actually knew that what he was saying was going to change, like how Scotty was playing. Even like putting players in positions to succeed. If a player has a glaring weakness, or if you see like there's an advantage and you can sort of milk that advantage, I think the player sort of files it under, this guy knows what he's doing. And then over a period of time, the refusal to adjust, like Doc Rivers did, right? I think that can sort of lose the locker room too. And then the development sort of goes out the window a little bit as well, because now you just don't feel like you're in good hands. And I think this applies very broadly to all leadership positions, not just basketball coaching. Are we talking about Jordan Hawkins? Yeah. As a Kevin Huerter clone? Yeah, I love him. I'm cool with pretty much any of the assistants that are currently in the running for the Raptors, but as I mentioned or alluded to earlier, there isn't really a definitive job that you really can pitch to these guys, and that might be holding some things up. That being said, this game of musical chairs is almost over, and the Raptors are the last people kind of just standing around. But, I guess I want to leave this because it does not seem like people want to call in. If you want to call in, the link is in the description. Please let me know if the link is not working for some reason. Vince, if you want to call in, or whoever. Oh, you mean Jordy? Yeah, I mean, look, you need somebody who can do what they think Nick Nurse is going to do in Philadelphia, which is hilarious. And I don't want to shit on Nick Nurse any more than I already have over the last 2.5 months. And I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, because he did a lot of good work here for the last 10 years. And I think that he's a really smart person and probably knows a lot about basketball. If not, definitely knows more about basketball than I ever will. And I completely accept that. And when I say this, I don't mean to be catty or rude. But whatever you think he's going to do for Joel Embiid, I think if you were more open-minded, if you're Daryl Morey and the Sixers ownership, if you were less about chasing the name and chasing yourself, basically, your own spitting image, your own likeness, if you were less of a egotistical maniac, you would have seen that Jordi Fernandez could probably do more of what you want in terms of creative ways to unlock Joel Embiid. Because if that is the goal here, then I think he's done it, and I think he has the right experience for it. He's basically coached, like, in the last 6 years, he's basically coached two big men who have drastically improved under him, which is Nikola Jokic in Denver, and now Domantas Sabonis in Sacramento, who just had like a career year, and Jokic won 2 MVPs. Like, I'm just saying, like, this guy really gets it. He understands basketball. He understands movement. He understands how to unlock a superstar. And I think Joel Embiid, no offense to Nikola Jokic or Domantas Sabonis, as a talent, like as an offensive talent, I mean, Joel Embiid is on another fucking planet, talent-wise. Mentality-wise, maybe not. Mentally he's different, but talent, pure talent. And, I think, to be completely honest, I think Jordi Fernandez would have been the right fit in Philadelphia. I really do. I think David Adelman would also have been an interesting fit. But one thing I've noticed with Daryl Morey, and I have studied Daryl Morey extensively, is just that I don't think he gets people. I've always felt this way about him, I'm not trying to be rude. I just feel like he doesn't get people. And I think Nick Nurse doesn't get people. And I think this is just two people who don't really understand people, who are barreling towards a lot of future failure. I do not think that Nick Nurse in Philadelphia is going to work out. I'm not even going to bullshit. I'm actively rooting for it to not work out in Philadelphia. I do not like what Nick Nurse did here. And I absolutely do not like Joel Embiid. If Tyrese Maxey makes it off that team somehow, because he is my favorite player on that team, I pretty much could call them one of my 5 most hated teams of all time as they're currently constructed. There's nothing I like about that team. So that's where I'm at. I don't think that's going to be smart. But for the Raptors, I really feel like Jordi Fernandez is the guy. All right, now we have 2 callers. We have Vince and we have IsJ. So we're going to go to Vince first, man. Vince, what's going on, man?
What's going on, brother? How are you doing?
I'm better. I'm good. Yeah, I've been decluttering my home, like massively decluttering my home. It's been great. Yeah.
Oh,
I got a
man.
new lamp too.
Big things in the Pensari world for sure.
Big things, absolutely. I think my lighting has never been better than it is today. I'm pretty sure this is about as decent as my lighting has looked the entire time. So I'm
Yeah,
happy
no,
with
it
that.
looks good. Looks good. You got the dim vibe going.
Yeah, that's pretty much my vibe. Anyways, what's going on, man? What you think of the game?
I actually didn't get to watch much of it. I only caught the fourth quarter because I had an event to go to tonight. But I was following along with the scores. I think I like many people thought that game 1 was going to be a bit of a washout. And I guess it ended in 10 points, but I feel like it was one of those games that was the score didn't reflect how lopsided the game actually was. Is that right?
Yeah, it was way, way, way more in the Denver Nuggets' favor. Like,
Yeah.
I had this thought today when I was watching Jokic in the fourth quarter, which was like, if this guy really, really wanted to, could he score like 55 points a game?
Yeah.
Like, could he bring it back to like Wilt times where he really can. Like, there's nothing he can't do. There's nowhere he can't score from. He's turned himself into about like the best shooting big man in the league somehow, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And he can do anything from anywhere on the court. Like, he's literally like a 3-level scorer. He's a threat from both sides, both hands, does not miss close to the basket, true shooting off the charts. And then to make it worse, he's like a better passer than he is a scorer. And possibly the greatest passer of all time in the NBA. Is that calling it too much? I don't think so. I watched a lot of Magic, a lot of Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd was like, that was like a hometown sort of hero sort of situation because he was in New Jersey when I was, in New York. And I mean, like watching him just across the bridge. I'm sorry, like these are some of my favorite players of all time. He's better. He's a better passer than Steve Nash. Like he's crazy.
He has an advantage. He has a physical advantage over those guys. He's taller, so he sees passing angles better. He can make reads that guys like Steve Nash, J. Kidd couldn't do. Like Magic was huge for his position, but I mean he's got 5-6 inches on Magic. Like
no, he doesn't. Magic 6'9", Jokic is about 6'11".
Was he 6? Oh, okay, I thought it was like 6'6", or I thought he was 6'7", 6'8", something like that. But anyway, he's still bigger and he's incredible. I think a little bit of an underrated or something, not maybe storyline over the next like, how old is Jokic right now? 27. 7?
I think he's 27 or 28. Yeah.
So is it crazy to think that the next 6 to 7 years in this league are going to be between like him and Wemby? And like, if your team is good, you're going to have to beat one of those two guys. Like obviously injuries happen if any of the supporting cast of those two teams take a big hit, like Jamal Murray, like MPJ, those guys go down for huge portions of the season. That's gonna make their odds suffer. But let's say injury is kind to both of those teams. Like I feel like it's sort of an underrated storyline that the next 5, 6, 7 years could belong to those guys.
I don't think the Spurs are going to be anywhere close to that for the next 2 to 3 years. But after that, I could see it. Wembanyama has a long way to go before he can do anything to someone like Nikola Jokic. Like right now, if Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama were in the same playoff series, it would be a sweep.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's nothing that someone of that weight can do to someone of this craft. Like I don't care how tall you are. I don't care who you blocked in Europe. You're not blocking Nikola Jokic just because you're taller than Nikola Jokic. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that the physics of it are going to make him an impressive, at least for now, a very good help defender, an extremely unique type of, like, disruptive defender in terms of he's going to pick up a lot of blocks and surprise a lot of people because they just never have their shot blocked the way they're going to have it blocked with him. But if Nikola Jokic or frigging Kenny Lofton or any frigging person who's even Scotty Barnes takes him in the woodshed in the post where they're going to allow you to play, they don't call fouls in the post, right? So they're going to allow people to just bully him underneath until he's underneath the basket. You're going to have to send help. Like, you're that tall. I mean, I understand he's put on some weight, but he is still skinny as hell. And the taller you are, the skinnier you are, the more easy you are to move. He's going to have a lot of trouble, in my opinion, especially with someone like Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. He's going to be really, really, really in trouble against those guys. But against, teams that don't have a center who can post up, he's fine.
Sure. I was thinking more along, like, say, for the next 2 years, it's Jokic's league. And then thereafter, once Wemby gets a few years under his belt, and it's now we're in years 3+, and the Spurs have picked up another couple of nice draft picks, and a couple of their guys have developed a little further, and they have a ton of cap space to be able to go out and sign solid guys. They have a lot.
When have the Spurs ever been able to sign solid guys? Who wants to play in San Antonio?
I meant solid role players more than anything. I know that stars typically aren't going to go there.
I mean, I don't see a second guy on that team. They gutted their entire roster to get this guy. So this is the first step. I mean, I understand Devin Vassell is great. He's but is he a second guy on a championship team?
No, I don't think he'll be a second guy, but I think he could be easily a Chris Middleton type third, very high end third best player, that kind of thing. Let's not forget Middleton was like like a decent second best player before they
Right.
could get over the hump. Obviously, they needed Drew
Right.
for obvious reasons, but I feel like Keldon's the book on Keldon's not written yet. Like it looks like he can be pretty streaky, but he's got a nice little game. He could develop into something better
No,
than he is right now.
I would be very curious to see what the Boston Celtics get for Jaylen Brown if they decide to keep him, because I think, Jason Tatum's gotten better every single year. I wouldn't write out Celtics Nuggets in the finals next year. I think that's much more likely. Also, again, so many things when it comes to Wembanyama. What could go right? What could go wrong? Again, we haven't seen him, and I think I'd wait on that. Like we can both agree that he was on day one like a hell of a talent, really interesting to watch. Probably go number one in every draft in the last 15 to 25 years. Yeah, fine, all of that is true. But LeBron James missed the playoffs in his first year, and I guarantee he was a lot more physically ready than Victor Wembanyama to play in the
Sure.
NBA. So this is going to take a while.
Oh yeah,
Granted, yeah, like I mean, and it's so much depends on who the other guys are and what they surround themselves with, and also like I mean, it's hard because they are in the same conference as a really good team. If they can get healthy, the New Orleans Pelicans, right? If they can figure out this John Morant situation, the Memphis Grizzlies, right? If they can do something around the core of KD and Book, are we so sure that that's over, right? I mean, there's so much parity right now in the league that is just absolutely, to me, about clear that some team out there is about to pull off like a drastic move to separate themselves, and maybe that's Portland. You know what I mean? Maybe that's Portland. We don't know that, right? Like we don't know if Scoot falls to 3, Portland has 3. Are we sure that Scoot and Wemby, sorry, Scoot and Dame and Shaden Sharp, whom you love so much, and Scoot, who you love so much, that they're not in the finals like in 3 years? Like we don't know that. So there's so much that can go wrong, and I think like this cap is really going to change so much. I think it's got to change the thinking not only for the Golden State Warriors, but it has to change the thinking for teams like Boston that are right on the line. Are they going to be able to keep Grant Williams? Are they going to be able to keep Peyton Pritchard? Are they going to keep those two guys? Right?
Oh.
Are they going to be able to keep Jaylen Brown? Like, boom, now your core is combusted, right? So you might be right. Maybe a team like San Antonio, who has all these cheap young assets that are on very favorable deals and a ton of draft picks, are the team that if Victor Wembanyama pops, that they actually are best suited. But, there's another team out there in the West that I think has a great deal of potential, which is the OKC Thunder.
Oh yeah.
My God, like the potential that team has, Chet coming back, they have another 2 draft picks in this draft, more draft picks in this draft. And then they have boatload of future assets. And they are, like, honestly, if there was a team that could really make a line share type of offer for Jaylen Brown, it's that team. I don't know what they would do with him. I don't know why they would need him. But, like, my God, like, they could offer you the whole world.
Yeah, that OKC. I definitely haven't forgotten about OKC. They pose a serious threat.
Do you think they should trade for Pascal Siakam?
OKC?
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I wish they would.
I know you wish they would.
Yeah.
I think they should.
I don't think they will. I think if any team's gonna do it, it's Portland, just because they've run out of other Portland. I think would want Mikal Bridges first, Jaylen Brown second. I don't think either of those guys is going to be available for the in exchange for what they can give up. I think if anyone takes on Pascal, actually I wanted to ask you about this. I always qualify every fake Pascal trade by saying I like Pascal. I think he's a good player. I think he's better than what he showed on the Raptors this past year. And I think if you put the right team around him, he can thrive. Evidenced by the fact that we won the chip in 2019 with him as the second leading scorer. You can quibble whether or not he was the second best player with him.
I'm not
or
quibbling
Lowry.
over whether he was the second best player. He's not the second best player on that team. He was not the third best player on that team. I just feel like every show is a reminder to me that there's an opportunity here to hopefully enlighten the fan base a little bit about the role that Marc Gasol and Kyle Lowry played on that team, the
Sure.
role that Danny Green played on that team. That was Kawhi and a really good team.
Right.
And Pascal Siakam was a part of that really good team.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. When I say second best player, it's kind of like I'm almost talking like
He was the
like
second leading scorer. That's it. That's what he was. He was not the second best defender.
Yeah,
he was
second
not the second
leading
best
scorer.
playmaker. He was literally just the second best. He was the second best. I don't want to say he was the second best scorer. He was the second leading scorer on that team.
Right.
That was largely due to opportunity. I don't necessarily. I mean, dude,
And
Norman
guys-
Powell. Norman Powell isn't a great scorer. He's a great scorer. It's just that
Yeah.
scoring is coming from a different position that maybe you don't need, that you're a little bit deeper at.
Sure.
You know, everybody doesn't need to do the same shit on the court, obviously. You know, people score in different ways. Obviously, he kind of just fell into that role largely because I think there was a mismatchability element to you know, him playing four. He got a lot of shots in early transition because he was just beating guys up and down the court.
Yeah.
He was a two-way guy, so he was naturally going to be part of your offensive scheme because you needed to have him on the court defensively. You know, that year with Kawhi, I think I would argue he was a top 15 defender in the NBA.
Right.
So there's so much good that Siakam did, but to even suggest that a team that has been built around him in any way, not even built around him as the guy, but built around him as one of the fundamental three things that makes that team go, has ever had playoff success, I think would be wrong.
Right. Well, I'd also argue with the notion that the Raptors team was built around him. Right. Obviously, it was just
What makes it go? Like, I mean, you could replace him with a multitude of players in the league, and I think it still works. Same with Fred. You know, with all of his, you know, I want to chip, whatever. Like, you replace Fred with, shit, man, like 100 different players, and
Yeah.
it still works. The
Spencer
players
did-
on that team that were really irreplaceable to me were Marc Gasol, like a real one of one, you know, in terms of like what he could do as a basketball player at that stage, defensively, offensively, around Kawhi. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, and Kyle Lowry, obviously.
Yeah.
I think you can get into the semantics of the fourth guy being either Danny Green or Pascal Siakam. Some people find that very offensive. And we're like, oh my God, go friggin' figure out how great Danny Green was for that team. It always gets underrated because the numbers weren't big, but he was great defensively, offensively. I think also it gets underrated because he struggled in the finals, right?
Yeah.
I think it was in the finals or in the playoffs. He struggled a little bit, but it was such a huge part of that team. And I think Norman Powell, you know, like the unsung hero of the bench, right? For me, really just a great player, 3-level scorer, could do so much, you know, not the greatest defender, obviously, but just offensively, I think he clicked so much for you. So yeah, I think those are the guys. And I think Pascal's one of those guys. I think, you know, you win the chip without him.
No,
I
for
think,
sure.
I think that sounds crazy to some people, but like, I think you replace him with OG in the finals. I think you probably get something close to the same outcome.
I think I'd probably argue with that. I think
OG was a better shooter. OG was equivalent defensively. I think he was just a little bit, well, I mean, not a little bit. He was way less developed offensively.
Yeah.
If Kawhi's healthy in the finals, we can argue that he wasn't really that healthy in the finals. Maybe I think you could make a case that you probably do.
Yeah, I think you kind of needed Pascal to be a little bit of the term innings eater. From baseball, you just need like guys coming out of the bullpen that could pitch 2 or 3 innings relatively unscathed. I think that's what Pascal was on that team. You needed somebody who could soak up some minutes, who can get to the rim, do a little bit of finishing. Wasn't horrible from 3, and I think that year he was like 37% or something like that.
Right.
So I think 2019 Raptors was one of the few teams where if you get rid of one of the top 7 guys, or maybe 7 or 8 guys, they don't win the ring, right? Like I feel.
But OG was one of those top 8 guys, and you did get rid of him because he
fell
fell out of the rotation.
I mean, like he was injured in the playoffs. So I mean, out of the playoff rotation.
So, like, if you take Fred out and play Jeremy Lin instead, you think you don't win a championship?
Yeah, maybe. I honestly think that might have been the case. And now Fred is on the he would have been that 7th, 8th guy for sure. But
He
I
was
think you get rid of
definitively
Danny
the 8th guy. I mean, we've gone all this time. We haven't mentioned Serge Ibaka, and I tell you, Serge Ibaka would have started for the Raptors at 5 for the last 4 years.
100%. No,
So that's who you're
100%.
missing in a conversation about that team and their best players. So that team was just insanely deep. I just think there are guys where like they're the wheels or the cogs. I don't know if that makes sense, but like the cogs are what makes everything go, you know? And the wheels go, right? So you get a guy like a Nikola Jokic, that's a cog. He can move a lot of shit around, right?
Right.
You can move pieces around him, which means that you can go from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to Will Barton. You can go from Juancho to Christian Brown, and it's not going to change very much. The pieces change, the cog stays, right? Those are
Right.
cogs. I think
Sure.
Marc Gasol is a cog. I think like you could put a lot of things around him. He covers up for a lot of different lineups. There's like a versatility to him. I'm not arguing that Pascal Siakam was really great that year. I just think like what his contributions are relative to what they really were are a little bit overstated. I think he was in a perfect situation. I think he's regressed. His role as it expanded, I think a lot of the stuff has kind of shown up a little bit more. It's kind of like, it's interesting. Like this Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam debate will just never go away. It just always seems to be on the tip of people's tongues.
Sure.
I don't know if it's because Jaylen Brown shut him down in the playoffs, in the bubble. I don't know if it's because they've been rumored to be, potentially traded for each other. Would you make that swap right now if you were the Boston Celtics? Just looking
if
at
I was
how
the Boston
much,
Celtics?
looking at how much they struggle with Jaylen Brown as a creator when Tatum was struggling. I mean, certainly Pascal Siakam has not had an 8 turnover game this year.
No, I don't think either. I think that neither of Jalen or Pascal are the perfect partner for Tatum. I think like Dame would be the perfect partner for Tatum, or somebody quick who can get into the lane, who can penetrate.
I'm gonna throw out a name for you, and you're gonna love this. I think. Can you guess who I'm gonna say?
A co-star for Tatum
The perfect co-star for Jason Tatum.
on a different team who it's
A
possible.
star. Yeah, a star that might be gettable, maybe, right now, who is a guard, who maybe that team may look at Jaylen Brown as a replacement. Someone's saying De'Aaron Fox or Brown. Nope.
No, De'Aaron
I'm
Fox.
th-
What the fuck
I'm
would they
thinking somebody else, man. I'll give you another hint. Some people think, some people were coming into the season thinking he might have been the face of the league, and then he had a little bit of trouble.
Oh, Ja Morant.
Yep.
You think Memphis would try? Oh yeah, maybe. Shit. Maybe they want to get rid of the Heat.
Yeah, I think.
Not the Heat, the basketball team. The Heat.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I think it could be one of those things where, they take a lot of heat from. I mean, not to use that word again. They take a lot of heat from their season ticket holders. Second time
Sure.
that he gets caught with that. Boston rolls the dice on a massive talent upgrade because I don't think that there's a comparison here. It's happened before. It's like a damage assets buying, 80 cents on the dollar.
Right.
And it's like Jaylen Brown is just good enough that you could sell your fan base on the rationale. Like it's really difficult to trade a star and get equal value back. You're not going to get equal value back for Ja Morant right now. Not just his situation and what he's, really subjecting himself through at this point. I mean, the amount of money he's cost himself by not making All NBA this year is just bonkers to me. One of my favorite players still. I think he and Jason Tatum work together, and it just might be it might be one of those Javaris Crittenton situations, to be honest, where the guy just needs to get out of Memphis.
Bro, that team would be disgusting. That like if Ja was on Boston, oh my god, like it would pain me to like Boston. But
I mean, I love the Boston Celtics already, but I gotta say, like, among the fan bases that I think immediately when I think of, yeesh, this might not go so well, the Boston Celtics are up there, the Utah Jazz. I'm obviously just naming really, really white fan bases that have had a history of issues with racism. And yeah, I think Boston's up there as the type of, city that maybe that would be a bigger issue there than most places. And that's interesting because, Ime Udoka talks about very openly, I believe he talks about the liberalness of Canada and how that he didn't, I mean, this was a rumor or this was a confirmed quote. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it seemed to check out at the time that, he felt like it was just his womanizing and, I guess sleeping with a subordinate would have been a bigger issue and something brought up consistently by the Toronto media. So yeah, but I think from a basketball perspective, Jason Tatum and John Morant works really well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just to touch on the Ime point. Didn't he like infamously quote that like, oh, Toronto's too woke, like something along.
I thought that's what I read too, but
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was allegedly said or rumored to have said, or if it was like he just said, yeah, Toronto's too woke. I know he said he doesn't want to, be on a 5th seed, cap out on a 5th seed type of team,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, that was interesting.
Fuck, Toronto is. I mean, that's a bit of an asinine statement because where Toronto's place in the league is completely contingent on where Scotty takes them, right? Sure, if you think that that Pascal and Fred are going to be the Raptors bus drivers for the next 5 years, then sure, then they will 100% be capped out at the high end potential fifth seed. But the thought is that moves are going to be made at some point.
I mean, this is why this is so maddening to do lives about this, because I feel like I've been saying the same thing for about a month and a half, and there's only so many times I can say something before I lose my mind, right? Raptors are deciding on which direction they want to go. I mean, they fired Nick Nurse pretty quickly, but when it came to, finding a replacement, maybe they did him a solid. They did him a solid because they knew through the grapevine that there were going to be jobs available and perhaps even more jobs were going to become available. And maybe they jumped the gun, thought Ime Udoka would take the bait. And, there's all these rumors right now that the Toronto Raptors are frustrated with Fred VanVleet, frustrated that he hasn't given them a commitment one way or another, perhaps frustrated by the situation they find themselves in with him, financially, and how they've sort of made this massive mistake, or let's call it a subtle kind of mistake, or definitely a mistake, with Jakob Poeltl, bringing him in, tanking, not tanking, all that stuff, and kind of building towards the core. And now there's some serious doubt over whether that is actually worth it based on what they saw. So I just feel like nothing's changing, right? Like we as a fan base expect news stories to move very quickly, and the Raptors are sort of dragging their feet in the mud.
Right.
And it's giving a lot of credence to these people who say this team genuinely does not know what the hell they're doing, because there's no advantage at this stage to wait a month coachless. I mean, your young players have to develop, right? You have Rico Hines, I guess, sort of mitigating or, bridging that divide between, this coachless organization.
Right.
But it seems like there's really like such polar extremes where this team could go. And I can't think of very many teams in this league where I'm like, they could be vying for the first pick or a championship next season. But the Raptors are in that boat.
Right.
And that's exciting, I guess, but it was also like very frustrating because we expected to have an answer by now, and we haven't. We haven't gotten one.
I think they're going to wait for I think they want to do the coach thing first, and I really think that David Adelman is high on their list. So until they can talk to him, which is obviously not right now.
They could talk to him right now. They wouldn't be the first coach to interview, I believe.
Could they? Oh wow.
I think they could. I mean, they could request permission. I believe they already have interviewed him, if I'm not mistaken. He has interviewed with the Raptors. Maybe they want a second interview. Also, he had 10 days right now. He could have done a second interview, third interview. He could have done 500 interviews during this 10 days. It's not like, he's sitting there in a prison and they're just like, focus on the Miami Heat or the Boston Celtics for 10 straight days. And, the other thing that you realize very quickly is that Mike Malone has never passed up an opportunity to recommend that he is someone who definitely deserves to be a coach. And this is
Oh,
something
yeah,
that
for sure.
coaches really do, good ones really do for each other. Secure good ones. I'm sure Eric Spoelstra is doing that for Quinn. And, obviously Mike Malone has taken plenty of opportunities to do that for David Adelman
Yeah,
because it's
right.
just the right thing to do. So I don't think they're going to stand in the way. If he has a head coaching position, I don't think that's true at all. I think there
Well,
really might be a divide between the Raptors and them saying like, okay, one side saying, okay, well, Nash, like let's go
right,
Nash, let's go championship, and someone's saying, okay, no, let's go Adelman, let's go development. And I think those are very different, ways to
right.
go. Or maybe there is a contingent offer to someone like Steve Nash, but it's only contingent on whether Fred VanVleet will come back. Like he won't
Sure.
coach this team if he's coaching kids. He's not
Right.
going to coach this team to lose.
Sure.
And that's maybe held up everything because I'm trying to piece it together because the Raptors obviously aren't a very leaky organization even now. And most of the stuff we've seen coming out just seems to be like very Fred friendly. Does that make sense? Nothing I've heard come out makes him look bad. Everything makes him look good. Everything makes the Raptors look weak and somewhat like confused. And I just feel like if you're the Raptors, why the hell would you leak that you're confused?
Right. Yeah, shit. I fucking hope not, man. I like it. I don't know if it seems so clear. Like the path forward seems so clear. And yet we're just, we're observant fans. And to think that that the front office can't see it. Like I feel like they must know what's going on, and it's just a matter of it's like negotiation tactics, and they're trying to juice Pascal's value, and they're trying to, if let's say their coaching situation, let's say they want to lean into the young guy play, so they want to flip Pascal for young assets and draft picks, right? If they want to go in that direction, then and the teams that they're trying to deal with aren't biting on deals, or they're not being fair in negotiation, or maybe Masai is holding out for something potentially more, then
Right.
that's causing the ripple effect in not being able to choose a head coach, and so on and so forth. So I think that might be a little bit of an issue here. It's definitely frustrating for us as fans. Like, obviously, we just want to, come on, we want to know what's going on. Especially, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm still fucking MLSE takes money off my visa every fucking month. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know what's going on with this team, and I want to know which like it's weird to say, but like if they were to quote unquote run it back and try to keep adding small pieces onto the core, I'm definitely going to be a less supportive fan than if they were to blow it up. I hate that term, blow it up. It's retooling in a more aggressive way. I'm not one of those guys that thinks that automatically if you decide to go young, then you're going to be like you're going to be a shit team immediately. You're going to go all the way to the bottom of the league, one of the worst four teams. I think there are tactical ways where
I think there's different types of young players, right? There are young players that are two-way players. They play the right way. They're very mature for their age. And then there are guys who make a ton of mistakes. And I mean, all young players do make mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, the most error-ish, like let's call it the most error-prone player today for the Denver Nuggets was, surprise, surprise, Christian Brown, the rookie, right? Really smart player, super winner. I mean, he's won on every single level, high school, college. He's won everywhere. This guy, like, probably wins everything everywhere. Like, he's just an intense competitor.
Right.
Still made a ton of mistakes. There's just certain experience that you just can't. So you're not going to bring in a Scoot Henderson next year and contend for championships.
Oh, of course.
And you're not going to bring in a Victor Wembanyama or Brandon Miller or probably even a Case Wallace. Like, I think these guys, there's going to be a limit to how much they can help you win. Now, the difference between someone like a Case and Wallace and as someone like a Shaden Sharp, who you could argue both tomato, who you'd pick
boy.
over who. Yeah, you'd obviously pick Shaden Sharp, but um, I
picked
think
both
like
of them, actually.
sure, but that is true. In our draft, you did pick both of them, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is like you would pick one over the other. But I'm saying like one of those guys clearly, in my opinion, doesn't cost you as much
For sure.
defensively.
For sure.
And I think then you look at guys like Keegan Murray, and that's the type of young player you can actually win with. Unassuming role player types. But you take guys who take a ton of shots, who have the ball a lot, like a Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, et cetera. I think that's what makes Scotty so exceptional, because he was a young player who had the ball a lot, who did have a, let's call it like a very complicated offensive and defensive role, who still helped you win. I haven't seen a rookie do that in a really long time.
Right.
Because Paolo, clearly not really helping the Orlando Magic win too much this year. I mean, he's not
Right.
hurting them, he's not killing them, but the impact on winning is lower.
Right.
So I think if you do end up going retool, rebuild, whatever, I don't want to see the shuffling of the decks. I don't want to see like, okay, I want to see like a real concerted, cohesive vision. I don't want to play the 2 timeline game anymore. I don't want to have my cake and eat it too, because we haven't eaten cake for a long time here, right? I just want to see some tough stuff. I just want to see the culture back. I really do. That's what I want to see more than anything else.
That's a good segue to my next question. So if you're Masai and Bobby, and you're like, how let's say Portland is assessing whether or not Pascal's a good fit for Portland, and but they're trying to like any team, like any good organization is going to do, they're trying to squeeze as much value out of Toronto as possible. How low do you go in order to get that third pick, like a third pick for Pascal type?
I'll take Pascal. I'll take third pick plus scraps. I would. Like
So you would take third pick-
anything you want plus the third pick. We'll give
You
you
would
Pascal.
take third pick without Simons. You would take third pick and Nurkic and whatever other.
Yes, I would. I think the third pick is a very substantial asset, and I'm not really sure Pascal Siakam, in this new cap conscious world we're living in, is that type of asset. Now, look, some people really have not looked at the new CBA. I did. I read a lot of it. It's a little bit dry. Obviously, it's very long, but that second tax apron is hella scary.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't tell you how many trades over the last 6, 7 years, 8 years that have shaped the NBA do not happen under the new CBA. Obviously, the owners have a great incentive with this CBA. They win a lot with this CBA, obviously, because you can't have, you know what I mean? Like the implication here obviously is you as a league, you want your CBA to do some of those awkward conversations for you.
Right.
You want your CBA to be able to explain to Jaylen Brown why the Celtics can't give him his $295, because it is customary for teams that have star players to give them the maximum allowed, and players get very salty when they don't get the max allowed.
Right.
Now, in this case, the max allowed is $295.
Right.
Well, now you're looking at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and saying, all right, one of you is going to get 307 for 5 years. One of you is going to get 295. I mean, this is crazy.
No,
like we actually are handicapping ourselves in the future. We're not going to be able to function as an organization if we bring you both back. So you're going to have to take a haircut, and they're going to have to understand that okay, fine, I'm not going to make $50 million. I'm going to make $40 million. It's still a crazy amount of money. It's still more than any other team can offer me.
Yeah.
But that new CBA, that second tax apron, it's gonna change some stuff, and I think it drastically changes how appealing someone like Bradley Beal or Pascal Siakam is to a team that already has a star. Now, if you don't have a star, if you just have a whole bunch of young players whose contracts kind of time out with Siakam getting a max and kind of wearing it out, I think it's a completely different equation, which is why I brought up the OKC Thunder.
Right.
A lot of cheap assets. Okay, yeah, I mean, they're a small market team. Maybe they're not super thrilled about Pascal Siakam and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a Josh Giddey extension in 2 years. Maybe that's too much for them. But I think, someone like Fred VanVleet, someone like Pascal Siakam, I think that this new CBA, you definitely do understand why, if there was some working knowledge of what this new CBA was going to look like, why these guys have been so money and stat conscious all
Right.
year. Because under a new CBA, these guys may not be worth as much as they would be under the previous CBA.
No, and nor do I think that, like, I think at some point teams are going to catch on. Like, we can't, they won't be able to operate under the 2 superstars plus all role players model. Like, I think it's going to be hard for them to rationalize having two high end talents that you're paying. What would you say, 307 for Tatum and 295?
295 for 5 years for Jaylen Brown. I mean, you do the math
That
on
is
that.
fucked up. That's fucking crazy.
295. I mean, you fast math on 295 over 5 years. I mean, that contract averages out to about 60 million plus, right?
Right. And how much and how much does that
Wait,
leave?
hold on. Does it? Hold on. Yeah, it's almost 60 million. So it's like it averages out to like 58.9 or 9 or 59 million dollars a year.
Yeah, it's roughly $600 million for 5 years for 2 players. Right? So how much is left for them to spend before they hit the first and second apron? Like, is
Yeah,
that a model that's even sustainable for teams to follow?
I mean, obviously, with the new TV deal, these numbers will go up, right? The numbers will certainly go up. The cap figure,
Right.
the tax apron, and then the second tax apron will all go up. That is the
Right.
expectation. However, and that's all baked into the assumption here. But as these numbers go up, you're right, it will become almost increasingly rare to have a team with 2 supermax guys.
Right.
But if that team is a team with 2 supermax guys, ideally you've built it with at least some guys on rookie contracts, some cheap veteran minimums, right? And you're in a big market. I think what this is setting the league up for is expansion, right? Where you're gonna have some diluted talent, where you're gonna bring 2 new teams into the league, right?
Right.
You already got a more talented team, talented league, so now you ideally want to have like 32 marquee guys in the NBA and they're all on their own team.
Right.
That could make it a lot more interesting, because I don't think there's any question about whose team Miami is. It's Jimmy's team, and
Right.
Jimmy's team is taking on Nikola Jokic's team, right? But maybe Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, who are certainly going to be victims of this to some extent,
Right.
because of that extreme Michael Porter extension, and Jamal Murray's a lot of money tied up in those 2 players. I mean, as good as Jokic is, like, you're basically going to be those 3 guys plus absolute, like, low-level talent rookie contracts
Right.
for the duration. And if those 3 guys can't do it, I think what Boston is doing is really much impossible. What Golden State did with Kevin Durant is going to be impossible.
That will
You definitely,
never-
like, it'll be hard to afford the 3rd guy. It'll be impossible to afford the 4th guy.
Right.
So they had 4. They had Steph, Clay, Draymond, and KD. They won't be able to do that. I think it'd be hard enough to have Steph, Clay, and Draymond. And so the value contracts is going to go up immensely. And I think if you're the Toronto Raptors, you need to look at someone like a Derek White, Marcus Smart, and you ask yourself, like, does Fred VanVleet contribute to winning more than these guys? I don't think so.
100%. And like, dude, like, exactly. You hit on the main point, is that, like, per team, not like a world exists where if Siakam was to remain on the Raptors, he would be our Jokic in terms of money paid, which is the stupidest fucking thing in the world. And what I'm hoping,
he won't make as much as Jokic because he missed out on All NBA, so he won't be in that category.
sure,
thankfully.
maybe not that high end, but he'll, like, instead of making, let's say Jokic qualifies for 60 million a year, Pascal could qualify for 50 million a year, given that.
But he didn't. But that's the point. He didn't. So he's eligible for contract extension this year, right? He could wait it out, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, if he makes All NBA next year, then the same thing re-triggers or whatever, and
Exactly. If he makes third team All
he's not
NBA next
making
year,
All NBA, dude. Like, I don't see it. Like, he's been trending downward. People don't want to acknowledge this. He's been kind of trending downward for a few years now. I've been
right?
telling people about this. Is like, he's a bursty guy who relies on his first step, and his first step is getting worse. He's also a guy who, like Jaylen Brown, used to be a really fucking good defender. And
Right.
now I don't know what the hell I'm watching with him half the time, because it's like Pascal Siakam, to me, in a lot of lineups, was the Raptors' worst defender this year.
Right.
And Jaylen Brown, a guy that I very much valued as the prototypical shooting guard on so many levels, right? Because he's a two-way wing. Well, the two-way part is so gone right now. I mean, Martin lit him up like hardcore. Jimmy Butler ate his food. Like,
Right.
Gabe Vincent was just getting past him. Like, he was a pylon on defense.
I think he's a little bit of a head case, that guy. I think that
Jaylen Brown?
Yeah. I think
That was said with such a an Italian grandfather vibe to it. It's a bit of a head case, that guy. Shouldn't be hanging around with him after school. Like, I think it just reminded me of every. Yeah, I don't know. I think some tough decisions for sure in Boston. I don't think Jaylen Brown's worth that, but
hell no. Yeah,
but Jason Tatum is, and keeping Jason Tatum happy, I think it will. Like, I don't think he wants to play there alone, right? And I think
Do
it
you
just
think-
kind of puts into limit like how much you can put around those two guys, right?
Right. Do you think this new CBA forces teams to have far more difficult conversations with these guys who are obviously B-level players who asking and demanding A-level money?
But I think it's really difficult, right? If you're a team, to even broach that conversation. How do you start that conversation with a Jason Tatum or, sorry, not Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown or a Pascal Siakam? Because these guys have made All NBA, which, according to some people, thinks, means that they're top 15 players, which they're not.
Right.
And I think that there's so much of the situation that goes into that where it becomes a cart and horse argument, where you're saying like, hey, we've put you in a great situation to succeed, and they're like, no, we put you in a great situation
Right,
to succeed.
sure.
And it's like, who's lifting what, who's doing what,
Mhm.
right? I could make a case that, in a different situation, that where the offense is not tailored around him, Fred VanVleet's numbers would look very different, but he would be like, well, without me, you probably, end up in the lottery, which are like, great, we would love to, right? But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really difficult to, even with analytics, and especially if you lean into analytics, I think the analytics would tell you that Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet were a really big part of the Raptors' good lineups this year. And so, evidentially, they can look at that and say, well, yeah, we were your best players last year, and you're going to pay us like that.
Right.
And Scotty struggled, and we're not responsible for that. And you could be like, yeah, but if you were better leaders and if you passed the ball a little bit more, right? It's just all hypotheticals. So I think especially for someone like Jaylen Brown, who just made second team All NBA, is a very difficult conversation to have, that based on, playoff performance over the last 7-8 games, that he shouldn't qualify for the maximum amount that he's, and I think it also burns extra deep with him because of the fact that he was always the guy in all those KD rumors, all those KD
Right.
trade rumors.
Sure.
And if he knew that they tried to trade him for KD, if they knew that they tried to trade him for basically every star who's come up like for trade, and they've tried to make the move, or they tried to trade. So I think that might just
It erodes.
it just might be like, fuck it, I just want to go somewhere else. I don't want to be in Boston, So, yeah. But it's interesting, to see a team that was just so much more talented than the Heat lose to the Heat, largely because I believe that they just weren't as connected. I think their coach wasn't as connected. I think, obviously, Spoelstra versus, God damn it, what is Missoula? Like,
Right.
geez, that's such a gap in experience, such a gap in talent. I'm genuinely surprised that they're keeping Missoula. I'm honestly very surprised. Like, I can't believe it. I have no idea why they're doing it. What he proved, I have no idea.
Right.
It's just a desire for stability. Yes, he stepped into a really tough situation, but my God, really, what has he shown you at this point that warrants this level of trust? I mean, in all honesty, Will Hardy would have been the coach 100,000% if he were not poached first by Danny Ainge in Utah, and then they basically had to go to their third choice. And by all means, like, people don't realize, like, Ime Udoka was not a sexy hire when they hired him. There was a lot of criticism, like, what the fuck are they doing? There's better candidates available.
Mm-hmm.
So now, you know, we're going into next season with a potential where, you know, Coach Budenholzer might not have a job.
Oh yeah.
Really? Like, you're gonna let Bud sit on the sideline while Joe Mazzulla coach? Like, that's crazy to me. Like,
That's
Frank
crazy.
Vogel doesn't have a job right now. Stan Van Gundy doesn't have a job right now. Shit,
Yeah.
Jordy Fernandez and David Adelman are much better coaches than Joe Mazzulla.
I'm glad that I'm glad we at least are in the running for either. I would be fucking happy as hell if it was either of those guys. I think I would. I'm kind of.
You said you warmed up on Jordy. What warmed you up?
Just his experience with Sacramento this year. I looked at their team. You know, if you squint hard enough, like, I know that you're not in the let's turn Scotty into Sabonis. Yeah, but you know, like, some of the actions that like, I think he's naturally going to be a little bit more malleable than Sabonis, both on both ends of the court.
Right.
And so, but that I think that some of the actions that Sabonis runs, Scotty could easily run, and
Yeah, but I think this is sort of this is where I disagree with a lot of people who say, well, you know, David Adelman and Jordi Fernandez, well, they're the only guys who could do this because they're the only ones who've done it. Like, there are plenty of coaches, in my opinion, including Sergio Scariolo, who could easily implement the system. They've seen it, they've studied it. I think I'm most concerned, and this may, you know, shock some people. I'm not at all concerned about these guys' basketball acumen. Much less, I'm not concerned about Coach Bud's basketball acumen. I wasn't concerned about Nick Nurse's basketball acumen. I'm concerned about their impact on culture, their emotional maturity, their leanings, their preferences, and their tastes, specifically in basketball. Like, what are your philosophies in basketball, and what are your philosophies in dealing with people? And I think that is why listening to these guys, especially in these extended interviews, where they start talking about things other than basketball, like their interests, I think this is why this specifically speaks to me, and why maybe I haven't been jumping up and down for Darko. Because it's like, okay, like, fantastic dude, but I'm trying to understand who he is beyond basketball. It's the same thing with David Allen. Like, this is why Jordi Fernandez, because there's a Gilbert Arenas was talking on his podcast about, like, what it takes to be the face of the league, right? It's not just talent.
right.
There's so many things.
It's how you carry yourself. It's
how you carry yourself. It's your.
It's how you sell.
It's how you
appeal
talk.
to young kids.
You know, exactly. It's how you talk. It's how you sell sneakers. It's like, it's so complicated, right? It's like, it's your brand image, right? Can you be the face of the league? I mean, if it was just the best player, Nikola Jokic would be the face of the league. But do you really want, you know, this horse riding, you know, farm boy from Serbia to be the face of your league? He barely speaks English, right?
He wouldn't want to be that.
Exactly. So you gravitate towards your Vince Carters, your Kobe Bryants, your Michael Jordans, your LeBron James, your John Morants, your Zion Williamsons. You gravitate towards these guys. Well, it's the same thing with coaching, right? Like, it's not enough to just understand basketball. There are plenty of guys who understand basketball, don't understand people. Plenty of guys who don't understand people, don't understand basketball very well. I think you need that perfect thing. But then also, like, this concept of, like, Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster talking about the lost culture of Toronto, you know? There's so much to be said about how you turn a guy like Max Strus into what the Heat have turned him into when he was discarded by a team that has a pretty solid culture in the Boston Celtics, right? There's so much to be said about a guy like Caleb Martin, right? Becoming what he's become under the Miami Heat's tutelage. There's so much to be said about what Heisman is doing. Like all of these guys, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, even Kyle Lowry. I mean, how does an average team handle the benching of a Kyle Lowry, who has notably been a very sourpuss type of player, difficult to coach at several times, can alienate an entire, you know, coaching staff? How do they deal with him being away from the team for so long, being out of shape. Like, how do they deal with those situations? Because there have been plenty of situations that come up with Kyle Lowry. Oh, he's overpaid. All the fan base thinks he's overpaid, whatever. And they dealt with that. They somehow convinced this guy to come off the bench, play sporadically. Oh, he's getting 15 minutes, 14 minutes, no ego. I mean, naturally, selfless people are maybe easier to bring on board with, this is good for winning, but that conversation must be difficult and it must be had by somebody. And so, that conversation of, hey, Gary, you're going to the bench for 5 games. We want to see how it works, has to be handled with tact, decorum, empathy, understanding. These are all qualities that human beings possess or don't possess. I don't think Nick Nurse necessarily possessed them in spades, and I don't think Daryl Morey necessarily understands that he doesn't possess them because he doesn't value them. But I value them greatly because that's how you set up winning culture. You think about the most successful coaches in the NBA. You think about Larry Brown, you think of Greg Popovich. What did they do so well? Manage egos. They're so fucking good at it, right? Communication, managing egos. This is 95% of coaching, in my opinion. The rest of it is obviously, the X's and O's and the schemes and the ATOs and all that stuff. But any Nimrod can do that with enough like training and simulations and tutelage and reading books. I'm sure any halfway competent human being can learn the game of basketball well enough to coach an NBA game for a few seasons, if not for a few games. But how do you burn people out, right, in practice? How do you speak? Like, I think we all know the type of person that talks to us when we just understand better when they're talking to us. And then there's certain people that they load us up with too much information. I see this with directors all the time. I see this with coaches. I see this with teachers. I think that next coach has an insurmountable, if not huge, task ahead, which is rebuilding what it means to play back to Raptors basketball. And I think there's so many young pieces here, like a Gabe Vincent, right? Like a Tyler Hero, like a Duncan Robinson, guys who have that sort of quality about them. Like, they're hoopers, they love to play, they love to work, they're talented, they have certain discernible skills, like a Christian Koloko, Joe Wieskamp, Jeff Doughton. I think there are those guys, Precious Achiuwa, where they're kind of in that teetering point of their trajectory of their career where they can go one of two ways. And I think you get the right guy in place to rebuild that culture. And that's why I like Jordi Fernandez, not because he's coached Nikola Jokic and Domantas Sabonis, is because he seems like the type of guy who can really, really command togetherness.
Yeah, there was a couple instances like you. I've told you a couple times. I followed the hell out of Sacramento this past season.
Yeah, so did I.
Because I love the way that they played. I love the roster construction. And there was a couple times I think Mike Brown was out because of illness or something was going on, and Jordan took the reins. And you just love what you saw from that. Obviously, it's always a little bit of a feel-good story when the assistant coach wins his first game and he gets showered with champagne in the locker room, all that stuff. But you can just tell in the communication skills that sort of camaraderie exists. I think one of the knocks on Sergio for me is that the you need to be as a coach, I think you need to be seen more so as a peer to the players. And I think that's what the younger guys are, not just because they're young, but the particular David Adelman and Jordy, I think where they would have a little bit of a leg up is that they'd be seen as peers. How
do you explain Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich being so successful?
That was a different time. Like Pop's reputation,
and Pat Riley, for that matter, as a coach. These are the three of the most successful coaches in the league. They were all well in their 60s through much of their elite coaching time.
Way different time. That was we're talking 80s, like Bruiser era. Where
that's not true. Phil Jackson was 2001. Right, Greg Popovich was 2014, dude. Like he was coaching in 2014. He developed Kawhi Leonard. He had a great deal to do with that.
I just mean they started. I mean they started their coaching. Their coaching back then. And so once you get a reputation, I think there's a reason why Kawhi wanted to get away from that team is because they had this hierarchical system that was established over decades. That were the only reason that it
You
was
just
able.
need to find the right fits, right? Like
Yeah.
I think Victor Wembanyama is going to be great in that system. It's kind of like his vibe. It's what he goes for, and that's why you talk about Heat guys, Spurs guys, right? We're starting to talk about Nuggets guys, right? We're starting to talk about Raptor guys, right? Like there are teams out there who have had traditionally a bit of a identity for the type of player, type of human being they're trying to bring in.
Yeah.
And for the Raptors, like it's pretty consistent across 4 or 5 years now. The Raptors play
Yeah.
defense, right?
The only-
We play defense here.
100%. The only thing I don't like about what the Raptor identity has sort of yielded is this notion that okay, they're only going to take, if you can only be on the team if you're 6'7" or taller, and
It doesn't
we will
explain
get-
Fred VanVleet or Malachi Flynn or Jeff Doughton
Right.
or you know what I mean? Like they haven't really done it. I think more so
I
like
want them to focus a little bit more on skill. I think, especially in this upcoming draft, you need skill and you need natural talent. So that's why I look at guys like Casey Wallace, Kobe Buffkin. These guys, those guys are obviously naturally skilled, and so while there might be taller, there might be your Leonard Millers and that sort of thing. Leonard Miller might end up being a fantastic player, but right now he's pretty raw. Right. And I would rather them stay away, like take the guy who's maybe a little bit more defensively challenged. Right. Still holds up. Both those guys, obviously, Casey Wallace and Kobe Buffkin, they're both very good defenders for their position, but they're not going to be guarding Kawhi. You know what I mean?
right.
And so
I personally like my draft philosophy is I would prefer not to draft someone who at their best is still a liability on defense.
yeah.
Like you want like Gary Trent Jr. to be the high watermark in terms of like, okay,
Unless you're
this is like you better be better than Gary Trent Jr. defensively if you're playing on this team because like yeah, there are schemes you can use to hide them, but unless that player is as good as Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic, I don't want to have to play like I don't have to basically be. It's almost like there's like it's like a debt. Like defensively challenged players are like debt, right? Like they're constantly going to be a burden on your entire system, and someone's going to have to pick up the slack for shit that they can't do. And I just think that over a period of time, like you really do run out of space. We have Tamberlin and Is Jace. You mind if I just bring both of them on?
No, bro, I've got to.
You gotta go.
Right.
Okay.
My phone's about to die, so it's
Good timing.
Yeah, it's good, Tank. But great talking to you, obviously, as always. And I'll probably be around for a bunch more of the finals games. Like I'm going to be able to watch the next handful, so it'll be
Nice. Yeah, we're gonna get back to regular lives. Specifically around these games now that they're coming in succession 1-1-1.
And maybe we should catch a game together if you're ever up for it.
Like at a bar or something.
Yeah, bar. So yeah, someplace.
Cool. Yeah, we can do that. All right, man.
All
Peace.
right, bro.
See ya. Bye.
Peace
Bye. All right. Is Jace? What's up, man? Thanks for holding here.
Yeah, I just wanted to get like a few things in, but I was just enjoying watching the talk. So
Yeah. What did you want to what did you want to mention?
so I had like some just like small bits of information that I
Sure.
found out.
Okay.
Okay, so for like for Portland, apparently I was just like watching a YouTube live stream, and there's these like two guys that apparently one of them's like really connected with Portland, like the back end, and like they know like what's going on like in the
Okay,
office
sure.
and stuff. So he said that like Masai basically asked for Sharp Simons and third pick for any of OG or Siakam. So like they're basically saying like they're not gonna call him back. Like they're not even like looking at Siakam or OG at all right now. They're not even like that's not even a consideration. Like they're not even trying to call Masai at all. And another information that they kind of leaked out when they were talking about like another stream. It was like Grant's Jeremy Grant on their team. He's a unrestricted free agent, right? So the reason why he didn't sign an extension like before and he kept waiting is because he wanted to see where the team direction would go, like if it would be prioritizing like the Dame timeline or if they rebuild. So he's gonna get a sense of like that obviously at the draft if they trade the pick or not. And he's gonna
Right.
walk then if like they're gonna go young. That's basically what they didn't say that exactly, but that's kind of like the message I
I think
got.
I believe the second story more than I believe the first story. I just,
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure how Masai walks into a negotiation and says, give me 3 and Sharp and Simons. I mean, he has to be drastically undervaluing those assets. But, I mean, I
Sometimes
think
they
the
say,
value
like,
of 3 changes totally if Scoot goes 2.
and on top of that, it's like they were saying that, or there was people on Twitter saying that like he's doing that because you always start at the highest price, and then if you can work your way to the middle, it'll be like a better
They've
deal.
been shopping these guys for like over a year. Like obviously, and we've heard this many times that, oh, they're overvaluing their guys. They want the world for them. They want 3 picks, 4 picks for OG, whatever. Look, at some point, I'm kind of learning this myself. I know it's not, as sophisticated as basketball, but I'm getting rid of a lot of shit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting rid of stuff, like I'm getting rid of paintings that are awesome paintings, right? Paintings that were expensive. I'm getting rid of furniture, kitchen stuff. I'm getting rid of shit because I want to get down to the basics of what I need. And I have to list all this shit for sale. And yeah, I'm putting a $200 coffee maker that was literally $200 a year ago up for sale for $100. And my girlfriend's like, yo, you can get more money for this. I don't care. I'm starting fresh. Sometimes you got to take a bit of a hit. And I know that that's not the smartest asset management, but you're trying to win a war. You're not trying to win every single deal. Like it's a philosophy thing that I believe in, that you can't win every single battle if you're trying to win the war. You have to give some, lose some, right? In certain places, you're going to have to lose a little bit. It's just up to you to decide whether your wins are going to outweigh your losses and where you're going to win and where you're going to lose on a certain trade, right? I mean, there's always a winner or loser every single trade. I think some people just get too caught up in like, oh, I got to have 105% value to bring this back to my bosses and to win the, PR night. Like at some point you have to ask yourself, if you had sold Pascal Siakam 70 cents on the dollar and not traded for Jakob Poeltl, basically for 112 cents to 120 cents on the dollar, are you in a better position today? Absolutely, you're in a better position today. So where are we at? You know what I mean? Like there's so many intangible qualities, intangible components to where a team goes because of which decision, that I believe more in the team that operates within the philosophy of doing the right thing, as opposed to tries to get every single signing and every single move right. Which is why I support the Raptors in their in their signing for Otto Porter, because it's a decision I understand and I get it. It didn't work out, but I get it. You don't have to win everything. I just want the thought process to be right. Building a 6'9", all defensive, switch everything team with guys like Fred VanVleet on the team, this I don't understand.
Yeah, and also like I just had like kind of my own thoughts too. Like
Sure.
I feel like if I was Masai, like for the third pick, if Scoot would fall to 3, I would be like completely okay with just doing Simons and third pick for Siakam. But if Scoot's not on the board, like the drop off of talent from 3 to 4 to like Amen or other players, I would probably ask for Sharp instead. And they'd have to like do it like a 3-way deal or try to find a way to add filler or something.
Yeah, I think this Portland Raptors thing has been talked about to death since the trade deadline. It was actually like it started last year. At in the off season, OG to Portland for number 7, and then it just continued and it just keeps happening and happening.
Apparently
and happening.
Masai he said no to that because they didn't add Nasir Little. Like they were gonna get 7th pick and Grant. But he also wanted Nasir Little, and they just said no to it. So the deal got canceled.
Therein lies, that's exactly it. So today, where are you at, right? You could have had Sharp or Dyson Daniels, one of those guys, and Jeremy Grant for OG Anunoby. Did you win or did you lose? You lost. You lost because you thought you were going to lose. It's and I'm not saying like, that's an undervaluing of OG Anunoby.
I think OG turned a lot better too. Like his value went up a lot. Like honestly, I feel like his value did go up a lot
this year.
No, since he made All NBA defensive, right?
He made All NBA second defensive team. I don't think that necessarily swings it too much. He's also 1 year less contract, right? So team is like, look, he's been a bargain contract. It's just like the DeJounte Murray thing, where he's just way, way, way better than what he's being paid. That's part of the value. That's part of why you could get number 7 plus Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
If he was paid $38 million to $40 million right now, no one's trading for him. So now the closer he edges to inevitably being paid 35, 34 million, whatever, if that's his market, then his value goes down too. Because who has, I mean, in a league where you're hard capped at 180, like absolutely hard capped at 180, who has 35 to $40 million for OG Anunoby? I mean, maybe a team with a super young superstar or like, a super duper star where OG Anunoby just shores up so many things. But I don't think it's the same thing with Jaylen Brown. He's overperformed all of his previous contracts. I don't think he'll overperform the next one. It's the same thing with OG. He's overperformed all his previous contracts. Same thing with Fred VanVleet. He's overperformed all his previous contracts, and it was projectable that he might overperform them. It's not like, oh, every single time he's so surprising. Like, yeah, the contracts were somewhat reasonable when he signed him, and he got better. But they're approaching that part of their career trajectory where people don't tend to get drastically better, and you're paying with a lot of expectation that they'll do that. And yeah, I think Masai, I think he tends to overvalue his own guys a lot. I don't think that's a secret around Raptorland or anyone. And I think it's going to come back and burn them. I think,
With this new CBA for sure. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see Fred, Siakam, all these players under contract.
Any final thoughts, Chase?
I have one more thing that's actually
Yeah.
like, really massive. It's bigger than all of these, but it's been on Twitter for a little bit, and there's been like a fans, it's like a draft expert or something.
Okay.
Apparently, Bilal Coulibaly has been informed that he's promised to be a lottery pick before pick 14, and
Great.
the reason why I think Masai is was actually the Raptors because that Raptors have 13, and then Raptors have to incentivize because they don't have a pick next year, right? So they can, that's like an incentivication. Oh, we're gonna try to inform that we want him to pick him as lottery, right? So he doesn't like, oh, he get more money, or he won't like go to the next like year or something because they don't have a pick. And I mean, Masai went to France to scout like this is team, right? As well.
Yeah.
It's literally like a typical Masai type of pick. So yeah, it's been on Twitter a lot, and a lot of people are saying that it's literally Raptors are trying to go for Bilal Coulibaly, which is a project.
I mean,
player,
dude, he's
right?
not a project. I don't think he's a project. I think he has a great feel for the game. I think he's got
but
a
doesn't
lot
that-
of NBA ready tools, man. I think he has a lot of
But if you really think
Giannis-
about it,
what.
if you think about it, like this type of pick, what does it say about what the direction is, though? I don't
It
think
says the direction is what it always should be, which is pick the best player available. I think Bilal Coulibaly has so many good qualities. Dude, when I watched this guy's film, when I watched
he
him
has the
play,
same specs as Giannis when he was the same age. I think like he's like the same height and he was the same wingspan. I was searching up as well,
I don't know about that.
but he also has a shot too, and he's like quicker. I feel like
Yeah,
the highlights.
look, I think, I laid it out in my what I look for in draft players, but I think one of the big ones for me is how you move. He moves great. Of all the players
Very
in this
smooth,
draft,
fluid.
he just moves like different than other guys, and it's something that kind of caught me on to Derrick Rose, John Morant. There's certain guys where you just watch them move and you're like, that will translate to
Same with Scoot too. I saw some highlights. Like
Great.
while doing plays, he's like palming the ball with one hand behind his back, looking for the passes. It was crazy. It's like while he's like
I mean more like how you move through the world. Like, I don't mean talent
Oh,
and
okay.
hand size. I mean like just how you move. It's a predictor for so many things. It's a predictor for offensive, predictability. It's also a predictor for injuries. People who have like sort of a hitchless, fluid way of moving about the world can become somewhat like the hip flexibility, the agility, all of it, right? The change of direction. I mean, basketball is a game of manipulation. It's about manipulating people into believing you're going one way when you're going the other way. So a guy who moves well, like an Allen Iverson, is going to have like crazy advantages. And I just think that there's certain guys where you see their movement pattern, just how they run, how they move, how they dribble, how they just move. And you're just like, God damn it. Like, I know it's not showing up in the analytics here, but the way this guy moves is so freaking effortless. And it doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be slow. It doesn't have to be, big and strong. It's just an interesting way of moving. And I think Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic have a very interesting way of moving too. It's very hitchless. It's not Jordan, it's not Scoot, but there is sort of like a flow to how they move, and I think that's
Yeah,
important for
sure.
basketball. And Bilal Coulibaly has that. And look, the Raptors know what they're doing with the draft. They may not know a lot. They may not know what the
Okay.
fuck they're doing with coaching, and they may not know what the fuck they're doing with trades recently, but they really do understand the draft.
Okay.
And if they have promised Bilal Coulibaly before 14, I trust it 1,000%. As I myself have watched his tape and been like, I would have a very hard time passing on this guy at 13 for sure.
As much as I like them doing this, now like if this is indeed true, I really want them to get another pick though. Like somehow trade for another pick because I really like a lot of the guards are really like especially Case and Wallace, like Anthony Black. Like there's a lot of good players in this draft. Like it's crazy how deep it is.
Absolutely.
I feel like Masai with multiple picks in this draft, it would be really good.
Everyone wants to have like 4 or 5 picks, but it's not 2K, and I understand the value of it too. But I think development time, energy, minutes all matter, and you have a lot of young players that need minutes. You have Precious Achiuwa, raw as fuck, needs minutes. Christian Koloko needs minutes. Jeff Doughton needs minutes. I think Joey's camp needs minutes. I know he won't get them. Maybe he won't get them, but I think he needs them. Christian Koloko. There's so many guys. In-game reps. Like you can only develop so many guys. So you start bringing in 2, 3, 4 rookies. I think you start running into some troubles. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Malachi Flynn, Delano Banton. I understand some people may not see these guys as blue chip prospects, but like the draft can be a crapshoot too. And yes, obviously, if you're saying we want more picks, obviously that's also indication probably that the value of picks in this draft is going to be really high. And so maybe, we do see teams giving up multiple firsts for the 22nd pick this year. Maybe that's a thing that develops this year where people really fall in love with this draft and they say, shit, there's this guy at 22. I would take him in the lottery in most years. I'm willing to part with two picks and a pick swap to get this pick. And maybe that is the value of an extra pick, but then you got to also factor that in, yourself and be like, well, are we in a position
in the future?
Yeah, you're mortgaging a lot for a gamble on something. So if you identify a guy that's that great, someone like Bilal Coulibaly, honestly, was mocked as low as 42.
Yeah, he's been shooting up
Okay,
the draft boards.
he is shooting up the draft boards because people are waking up to what the fuck they're missing with him. And I think that there's just so much of what he does translates to what we're seeing out on the basketball court. And he just, especially if your long-term plan is to move on from OG and Pascal or one of those guys, I think he fits in really well to some of the stuff that those guys did, and it's just his basketball. I don't think he's as raw as people think. Yeah. Anyways, it's Jace. Thanks a lot for calling in, man. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Cheers. All right. And after many months, Chamberlain, what's going on? We thought we lost
Hi
you.
there.
How you doing?
No, I'm fine. Hi, stranger. How you doing?
I'm great. How are
Watch
you?
the game? I'm good. I didn't even realize you were up, and then I saw this when I was checking out some other YouTube stuff, and I jumped on to say hi.
Hello.
So I missed your comments about the game, but my team looks good, Rob.
Your team? My team.
Well, remember when I called the Nuggets to win the title earlier, and we were talking with
Did I still hold that take at the time that the Boston Celtics would win? I've been pretty firm on Boston's going to win it. I'm just genuinely shocked at this point that we are where we are. But obviously, like as a Serb, I'm rooting for Nikola Jokic, and as a Canadian, I'm rooting for Jamal Murray. Like to me, this is just like it's very easy to figure out who I'm rooting for here. But I wouldn't be disappointed to see the Heat win. Would you?
No, I mean, Kyle's on that team, and Kyle was his typical self tonight. I thought the Heat played much better when he was in the game. I just think Denver is a well-oiled machine. I have thought that all along. I don't even think they played their best tonight. I thought the rush showed with them in terms of their shooting and their speed, and Miami, I think, has to split these first 2 games. If they don't, I think it's a gentleman's sweep. And if they do sweep it, maybe 6, but I think it's the Nuggets to lose. And
So
I thought they would win all season. So I'm not surprised they're here. I thought it was going to be Milwaukee. that would be there. But
And you would have picked them over Milwaukee in that case.
I don't know. I would have had to see because Milwaukee was weird for me this year. They, even though they had the top spot in the East, there was something that just didn't. I don't know whether it was Giannis dealing with some nagging injuries or what it was.
I think to me it
Something.
was Chris Middleton. It just didn't feel
Well,
right.
Chris, yeah, he never came back. He was never right. And just on that last conversation, it's not that Masai wants to win every trade. I mean, if you look at the trade, you ideally for any franchise, you almost want it to be like a Tyrese Halliburton, Demonis Sabonis deal where both franchises come away happy. You know,
Right. But obviously, like one of those two, when we look at it 10 years from now, is going to be completely different than the other, right? Like, I mean, no matter how good
absolutely,
Demontis Sabonis ends up being for the Sacramento Kings, in my opinion, in 5, 6 years, we're going to look at that and say they gave up on Tyrese too soon. What would it have looked
absolutely.
like with Fox? Whatever, right? So it's just it's difficult, right? It's difficult, but I do feel like Masai's he overvalues guys that have come up through his system. That this bond, the longer it goes with him, the way that he held on to Casey, the way that he held on to DeMar, the way that he's held on to Kyle, even, it's difficult for me to not realize that this is a thing with him, where it just does become very personal, and it shouldn't. In my opinion, it shouldn't. I shouldn't. I don't think. To frame this back to something where I, realize like that I can actually say, like, I can share that I experienced this. I was dealing with somebody in a business setting, right, where they owed me a certain amount of money, and let's just say they hadn't paid up to the extent that they needed to. And they started branching off into all these fucking, but what about our relationship and how long we've worked together and I'm a good guy and all this stuff. And I'm
Guilt
just
trip.
like, yeah, it's guilt tripping, it's gaslighting, it's all this stuff. And I was just like, hey, wait. Stick to the issues here. I performed a service, you owe me money. Those are the facts. I don't care if you're a good guy. I don't care about, relationship, this, da, 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 da. I don't care. And it's the same thing with basketball. At the end of the day, like, you make a calculated decision. I'm not saying become completely emotionless like a robot like Daryl Morey or some, AI program. But I do believe to some extent there has to be, like, there's a healthy amount of loyalty, but then there's, like, it can go too far. And I think anything in excess is a problem. And I think this time it just becomes like, it's not even like loyalty at this point. There's nothing loyal about, trading OG or not trading OG or whatever. Like, loyalty extends to, okay, I'm not going to trade him to a bad situation. I'm going to try to be honorable. No, there's like a genuine, like, 35 to 40% tax that you're putting on how much you value this guy because he came up in your system. And to me, it's like, who cares where the guy came up? To me, that's the crazy part. To me, it's like, who fucking cares where you developed? Like, is Caleb Martin less of a player to me right now because he developed in Miami? No. Like, I mean, he's clearly like a better prospect than some of the young guys you have on your own team. Doesn't matter where he came up. So
What happened tonight? Lights too bright for him?
I think the scouting report is out and he's gonna have to do some work. I'm not just going to throw out the baby with the bathwater here. He's starting in an NBA Finals game. And he's on the scouting report, and they're not going to let him, do everything that the Boston Celtics did. And it's interesting. It's a long series. Again,
Yeah,
I suspect he'll get.
I think it's more of a statement about the fact that Boston's defense was definitely not paid as much attention to as the offense, even if you caught most of the post-game interviews with what's his name?
Joe Mazzulla?
Yeah, because I'm so tired. Every question he was ever asked about anything that happened in the game, it was always our offense wasn't flowing right or we missed shots. He never ever hardly said anything about the defense. And in fairness, he lost all of his front row coaches pretty much. Will Hardy went away to be a head coach, and Dennis Tarama left coach. So he didn't have a lot of support.
If Will Hardy was still there, Will Hardy would have gotten that job.
Oh, absolutely. And they probably would have beat Miami if Will Hardy was still there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hell of a coach. I just think, like, I mean, I mentioned it with Vince before you came on, I guess, before you tuned in, which I'm genuinely surprised that Joe Mazzulla is going to keep his job here.
Not because Stevens was the one that loved him. He brought him from the back row to the front, so without really doing much of a search, right? There's
I mean,
obviously
it was
some
2 days
issues.
before the season started. It's not like they had their pick of the litter. I mean, they were kind of backed into the situation. Maybe, I mean, yeah, we can argue that they
Why
knew
make him a
about this
full-time coach? And
commitment.
why?
You know, you
Well,
don't.
I
You,
heard at one of the Miami games, remember the game? I think it was game 5, where they no, maybe it was game 3. That the owner was there and he was yelling at why do I keep forgetting his name? Muzila to take out the starting lineup, telling his coach what to do, the owner. And then he turned around and said, "Yeah, I will." So, and then I also read that Tatum has repeatedly said that he wants Robert Williams in the starting lineup. So, I just find Joe to be very stubborn in his viewpoints. He wants a million 3-pointer shot. He prefers to play small ball, and he doesn't put nearly enough emphasis in the defensive schemes because that team on paper probably. I was worried they were going to pull out Game 7 because I thought they were a tougher matchup for the Nuggets.
I also thought they were a much tougher matchup for the Nuggets, but I do think. I don't know. I don't know who would have won. I think it would have been a toss-up, but I think the Celtics were talented enough to beat the Denver Nuggets. I don't think the Heat are talented enough to beat the Denver Nuggets, and I think they'd require the Denver Nuggets to sort of beat themselves, which they're not going to do. And you know, at the beginning of this, the first half hour of this entire pod was basically about the Heat and the Nuggets. And one of the things I said was really that this Nuggets team has been talking about winning a championship all year. Everything from leadership to culture to Mike Malone and everything they've been doing has been geared up to the championship. And I believe I mentioned it when we played the Nuggets, that they have figured out a way to keep Nikola Jokic on the court. And they figured out defensive schemes that work with him because he's not nearly as bad a defender as people like to think that he is. And yeah,
or
they were
the
just
team.
saving
The
it for
team
the
is better
playoffs.
defensively than they give them credit for.
I think
Like,
they
look how
are.
much
Yeah,
Michael Porter Jr. has improved.
he
Adding Bruce
has.
Brown and KCP and Aaron Gordon, those 3 guys have shored up the defense for Denver overall. Sure, they've got some issues, but if Tyler Herro comes back for the Heat, you don't think Jamal and Nikola are going to hunt him out
They will,
like
and I
they did
mean
with Russell?
that's exactly it. And then one of the things that I also mentioned earlier in the show, which again, like I guess you did not hear, was that the Raptors have the kind of personnel in terms of defenders to throw at someone like Nikola Jokic, right? And really just disrupt his game a little bit. And I've seen it a few times, but the Heat don't.
Scotty locked him down. OG locked him down.
Exactly. And I think you need some of those guys, Pascal, OG, Scotty, Precious. I think these types of defenders, and the Raptors are just hoarding all of them at this point. It becomes really difficult, I think, when you're trying to run these complicated defensive schemes, no matter how much you would like to, if you have guys like Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus on the court. So I think that this leans very heavily into this idea of drafting guys, who at best case, something I was talking with Vince about, at best case, they'll still be a defensive liability. I take issue with that. I think, if things are relatively close, you do go for someone like a Bilal Coulibaly. You do go for someone like that, Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. Oh, I lost you. Where's the sound? Oh, there you are.
I'm here.
I wanted to ask you, and maybe you're not comfortable saying, and maybe I missed this already, but do you think that Masai and Bobby are waiting for the finals to be over because they're looking at Adelman and Quinn,
No.
or do you think Jordy's the number one guy or Scariola?
I don't. I did mention this earlier, but I don't think that that's ever going to stop. That's like Eric Spoelstra wants Chris Quinn to become a head coach. Like everyone in the Heat organization wants Chris Quinn to get that chance. They're not going to stand
Malone wants Adelman to get a shot too.
desperately. So neither of those teams are standing in the way of their top lead assistants getting a full-time coaching job with a really solid organization. It's not happening. Not to mention David Adelman had like 12 days, 11 days between, game 5 and now, or game 4, whatever did they say?
9 days.
Yeah, 9 days, 10 days. No.
9 days.
No.
Well, today was the 10th day.
Okay, so yeah.
I know because I wrote the preview, so I know.
Okay, yeah. So 10 days. I mean, that's a crazy amount of time to do plenty of interviews, to do 2 rounds of interviews if needed. These guys do have lives, they're staying sharp, they're scouting fine, but they're doing practice prep, but there's plenty of time. It's a short
So
flight.
who do you think's the leading candidate? Is it Jordy?
So someone told me Steve Nash, and I would hate if that were the case. My leading candidate throughout most of this process has been Jordy Fernandez. I'm cool with Sergio Scariolo. I like him a lot. I'm also cool with David Adelman. Nash to me is
I was hoping for Becky, but that's personal, I want to see a woman.
I like her too. I think some of the stuff that's happened with the Aces recently is making her a little bit. Yeah. It's created a lot of, and I think some of her own quotes as well about this. Like, I think they've been misrepresented to some extent, but I think they're not really doing her favors. Like, it shows to me a situational unawareness of the audience a little bit, right? I understand why she did it. I fully understand it. I understand that the Aces are a priority and that they're a freaking great team, and they just got Candace Parker and everything's going so well there. And why would you want to leave that situation to come on and have a media circus, and all that stuff? And I like her as a coach. I think she's a genius basketball wise. I just think that whoever is going to do this has to really, really understand like the ripple effect of every word. And to me, the way that she's handled some of the chatter around the Raptors, even it's very obvious which team, is she's talking about when she talks about these boys. The word verbiage of, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to take anything away from these ladies to talk about those boys or these boys. Or it was like, I know she didn't mean anything by it. I know that. I definitely know that. She don't have a racist bone in her body. I get that. But the word choice there was just like, yeah, this might not work out, because this is the type of thing that it stirs people up, right? It stirs people up who maybe don't have better things to do with their lives. And to me, it's like, you're going to need someone who's going to have an opinion, but also understand, like, this is not helpful.
Politically correct.
Politically correct, yeah. I mean, shit, like, she's a female she's gay and she's female, right? She's like, you don't win a lot of, like, if you're talking about the politically woke left or the right or whatever, you don't win a lot more points with the left than being, like, gay and a female. So she's got that sort of, it's called like a ace in the hole sort of thing of like, okay, and she's definitely not racist. I just mean, like, situationally speaking, something as simple as, it's unprovoked. It's unprovoked and it's making headlines. There's no need to do that. Like, you could have supported the Aces and just said, look, my entire focus is on the Aces right now. I love these, I love coaching these women. I'm not trying to mansplain how she should have answered this question. I'm just just trying to give my perspective on how you can do this without ruffling an entire, triggered fan base. And you could just say,
I didn't see the comment. I wasn't aware she said that.
Yeah, she said, I wouldn't
Too
take
bad.
And that's just it, right? Like, it kind of comes down to that, and I'm biggest supporter. I mean, 3 videos, I think, basically advocating that she was the most qualified candidate, and I'll hold on to that. She is the most qualified candidate in a lot of ways. She is 8 years, 9, whatever she's done under Popovich is an internship from hell, quite frankly. Those are long hours. There's a lot of learning, whatever that goes there, and quite frankly, you have guys like OG and Scotty and the city of Toronto. I think if there were ever a place that could give a female head coach an actual great shot at making this work and potentially changing the league forever, I think this was it. But
Did you,
she might not be the right person to do it.
right. Speaking of press conferences, did you see Nurse and the 76ers and Howard Eskin asking him about Harden today? I tweeted out that Nurse's face read like, "We're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy."
Yeah, I don't know. It's nothing weirder than, I mean, we touched on it briefly in the chat already, because we did listen to a little bit of Nurse's introductory press conference, and it's nothing weirder than how much shit Joel Embiid talked about Nick Nurse earlier this season, and how many jabs he's taken at him over the last 3-4 years, and the idea that he was the one who was on board with him coming on. Look, I genuinely do not believe that the Nurse in Philadelphia thing is going to result in anything of substance for that team, especially if they lose Harden, who is de facto their second best player. And I also don't think Nick Nurse is inspiring any confidence in James Harden. Like, I think if I'm James Harden, I'd rather play for Ime Udoka personally.
Yeah.
But I also don't understand why he's going to Houston. Is Houston just a big leverage pull for him? Because what is the point of a 34-year-old James Harden in Houston right now?
Better strip joints?
Pardon?
Better strip joints?
Strip joints.
Better strip joints for Harden.
Than Philadelphia?
Oh, you mean Nurse, or do you mean Harden?
I mean Harden. Like, what is the value of
I mean,
going
I
to
think
Houston right now?
I think there's a lot of things that are going on right now. Like, I think Nurse, what he did this year, a lot of it was orchestrated because he thought he had the Houston job, and then Udoka came out of nowhere. I feel like when Masai fired Nurse, that he thought he had Udoka wrapped up, and clearly he didn't, and especially after the comments that Udoka made.
Right.
I never felt, I was confused at first when Nurse accepted the 76ers job, and it was being reported that he was also in the Bucks and the Suns running, and his clutch putting out or leaking out to Shams and Woj that Nurse had pulled himself out of the running for the Bucks job just before the announcement was released that, oh my God, Rob, I'm so tired. Griffin got the job. To me, that was like a really petty play by Nurse, because why say anything? You don't need to say anything. You should be happy your assistant got a job after all the years he's put in. And there was another beat writer in Phoenix that said Nurse was never in the running. So it just felt like him and Clutch were leveraging to get him a job, and he ended up with the one with the 76ers. I don't think Nurse had as many options as his camp tried to play it.
Yeah. TR Mike saying, "Oh my God, is that Timberland?" Yes, it is.
It is.
Yeah. I don't think any of these, like, none of the coaching hires so far have inspired any confidence in me at all. I mean, yes, it is yet to see. Maybe Ime
Once he got paid. Yeah, I like Ime in Houston because they need the defense. I like Monty for Detroit because he's really good with young players. I think what they paid him was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I like him for that
crazy,
franchise and that roster. But aside from that,
I'm not wrong to say that Detroit is a very poor market. I haven't studied this in a while, and this might have changed, but I've never interpreted Detroit as having like a lot of money. So the idea of giving Monty Williams 6 years, my God, 6 years. I mean, first of all, I'm happy for Cade. Like, this is great for Cade, right? Like, this is going to be great for Cade. It's going to be great for Jaden. There's a lot of really young players there. And I think that this guy can come in, and I genuinely believe like he can correct some stuff for them. That being said, like there's a lot of
I still don't see them making the playoffs. Yeah.
There's a lot of assistants that deserve a lot of credit for Devin Booker, DeAndre. I mean, DeAndre Ayton was the first overall pick. How much worse could he have been, right? But Devin Booker really is the claim to fame of the entire.
And Malone outcoached Monty badly in that series. Badly.
He did. And, I mean, he's made it to the
Monty's
finals.
not good at the quick adjustments, and he's kind of like Messiah Nurse when it comes to his favorites. in terms of who he
Yeah,
plays.
I
You know,
Larry Kane, we were at Penn Dance, and news broke about Monty being fired, and he immediately came up to me. He's like, "Rob, I trust you on this stuff. Like Monty in Toronto," and I said, "No,
no.
no." And that was my first instinct. And I eventually, over some period of time, when I started hearing Nash, JJ Redick, I'm like, okay, well, Monty's definitely an upgrade on those guys. Now seeing how much it would have cost potentially to hire the guy, I mean, that's crazy talk. I think,
Who's his
again,
agent? Is
Monty's?
he with Clutch? Yeah.
I don't think so.
Like
Um,
that feels like he said, "I'll come here if
yeah.
if you pay me this much." Like I'm baffled by that amount of money. I'm like, he's making so much more money than Steve Kerr.
What's Steve Kerr making? 10? 8? 9?
Um,
The highest paid coach is Greg Popovich.
Popovich. Yeah,
At 11-ish. Is it 11.1, 11.5 last I checked. So what did Monty get? 6 years, 76 million? Was that it?
77, I think.
Holy
I
shit.
think 77. Hang on.
Okay, so he's become the highest paid coach in the league. That is
Yeah,
insane. Also interesting to note, like, I would be very curious to know what Nick Nurse is making. Now I'm
yeah.
very curious.
They haven't announced that, right? 78.5 is what
For 6
Monty's
years.
getting. Yeah,
Holy shit. That is a lot of money for a head coach. I mean, honestly, I was flabbergasted. Like you asked me like fair value for Monty.
13 million a year.
Yeah. I mean, fair value for him honestly would have been 8. They almost double paid. But that's exactly
And
it.
he's never won a championship.
Jesus.
Like
Yeah.
how did it had to be a hardball play that he said that he knew they wanted him, and that he said that he had other options,
Yeah.
and
Um
they placed an amount down. That's all I can think of.
yeah, Ebenezer Danino. Imagine how high Buddy would jump. He was like running for the Lions. I mean, I've been watching your comments, and did you just say that somebody said the N-word? Nobody said the N-word here, buddy. I mean, I don't know who you are, but you seem like a troll, and you're getting banned. Haven't had to ban person in a
Huh?
really long time. Yeah, I didn't say the N-word.
Yikes!
Did you say the N-word? I don't. None of us said
It's
it.
not in
So
my
I don't know what the.
vocabulary.
It's not in my vocabulary either. I don't know what this guy's saying. Anyways, yeah. I mean, it's just I have no idea what we're talking about, but it just feels like
Yeah,
as good a
we're
time as
talking about who
any.
Monty's agent was. That just threw
Yeah,
me for a loop.
yeah. That threw me.
So
That threw me for a loop too. Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so you want them to hire a Jordy? That's your preference,
Hundred
and he
percent.
was like right up there with me too.
Jordy,
I'm good with
Sergio.
Adelman.
Yeah,
Quinn is like someone said. I think it was Kevin Arnowitz did an article where insiders around the league call him Mini Me, Spo's Mini Me, and I mean Spo is amazing. Can you believe that Eric Spoelstra has never won Coach of the Year? How ridiculous is that?
sorry, someone's saying Rebecca Lynn Oberson. Yeah, I did hear you say it. It was like a slip up. No, I didn't. What?
I didn't hear you say it either.
It seems like he says it in his normal everyday life, and it just slipped. To be honest, I'm sorry. What the
I
hell?
never heard you say it.
I never said it. What are these people doing? Is this another troll account? Someone's saying rewind it. I will happily rewind it when this is over. Um, what are you talking about?
I have no idea.
Anyways, okay, this is
Yeah,
getting.
I'm like 99.9999999% sure that neither one of us said it. I don't even use that word ever, or any kind of like, and I didn't hear you say it. So
It's such a. I think this is a great social experiment in gaslighting. It's amazing, right?
mhm.
Because it does make you second guess your own reality. You're like, did I just say that for the first time in my life on a live? No, I didn't. Like why? You know what I mean? Like this is such a.
Yeah, let's just move on from that.
Rebecca, I am 1000% certain I didn't say it. What the fuck you talking about, yo? Like, honestly, you're a troll. Fuck out of here. First time, great coverage, champ. No, how about
You know what I was
fucking...
surprised about tonight was I really thought that Miami wasn't going to be able to use any zone defense at all because the zone buster is Nikola. Like they play, he breaks every zone. But what it did do is it stopped or slowed the ability for Jamal and Nikola to play the pick and roll like they do as much when they ran the zone. So I didn't anticipate that they would be able to use it at all, and it did work a little bit, but I don't think it'll work moving forward.
Yeah, I think I expect some adjustments. I don't expect this to be a sweep, but to be
No,
honest,
me either. Haywood
I
Highsmith in my preview, I said would probably get more run because some people were saying that Love and Cody Zeller should get on the floor. Well, Nicholas was going to eat them up as we saw him do to Zeller. But I think Haywood Highsmith is more like what we were talking about with OG and Precious and different and Scotty defending Nicholas. So I saw him as an option, and he had good minutes tonight. So I think you'll see more of him in game two.
that's that Heat Nuggets culture, right? Like I expect Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, Heisman. I expect all these guys to honestly develop. I mean, number one is a part and parcel. They get the right guys. They get guys who are willing to work. They get guys who are over themselves. It's kind of like what the Spurs have been doing for 25 years, under Greg Popovich, which is really, getting the right type of guys, the right system, and then unleashing them, empowering them, emboldening them, putting them in positions to succeed.
Mhm.
And, I would like for the Raptors to get back to that. I really would.
Yeah.
I like knowing that, hey, we draft this guy. The best possible outcome is going to be if he's with the Raptors, right?
So, question:
Yeah.
do you think we had the bench mob that initially we had Pascal and Brad and Norm and all those guys that came through and Jakob that came through the G, like they played either minor minutes with the varsity team and then spent some time with the G League and won that championship. Now in retrospect, was Casey kind of maybe a bit more accurate than we gave him credit for because there hasn't been much development of the young guys since he left.
Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, I think, it's so complicated with coaches, right? You have guys like Jama, Patrick Mutombo, right?
Hmm.
Jerry Stackhouse. I mean, these guys are huge, 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 huge parts of the 905 as well as the assistant coaches, right? And so
Hmm.
you replace them with different players, different people like Nate Bjorkgren, um, Trevor Gleason. Like these guys are different. Sergio Scariolo is another
Watson.
guy, who was here,
Hmm.
Earl Watson, Rico Hines, etc. So the
Hmm.
entire staff around Nurse have pretty much done a flip, and I don't think it's necessarily an indictment of him that his assistants didn't stick around. Maybe it's a good thing. But I also don't think that it's necessarily possible to say, oh, it was all Casey because Casey hasn't developed shit in Detroit, right?
True.
Right.
True.
So, and I mean, there's nothing in his days in Minnesota when he got his first coaching gig or in Dallas that leads me to believe that he was some czar at working with young players.
Griffin was really good in OKC. Like, remember when Jeremy Grant took the jump before he went to Denver? The reason he got that contract, um, excuse me, he worked really closely with Jeremy Grant
Who
and
did?
Adrian Griffin when he was an assistant there,
Apparently
and
also
he
like the mentor for Jimmy Butler.
yeah. And he with Grant, what he did is he worked on his second jump, like when he went for rebounds, and on his shot. And if you look at where Jeremy Grant's leap occurred, it was those two areas specifically. Suddenly his rebounds jumped incredibly because Griffin taught him how to get up quickly in the second jump and also taught him form for shooting. So
Hmm.
I'm happy for Adrian Griffin that he got the job. I know there's a lot of controversy around him with his ex-wife, but I'm happy for him. And
Doesn't seem to be much of a talking point these days. And I think also like what happened. seems to be out of character, and also there's two sides to every story. I don't
Yeah,
think
and
there's
his daughter
anything.
defended him too. Giannis apparently told management he wanted Adrian, and
Yeah,
he did not want Nurse.
that's good to know. And I mean,
Hmm.
I don't blame him, but that's
Hmm.
interesting. That's interesting to know that he, drastically preferred Adrian Griffin. And I mean, look, if you're the Toronto Raptors, great. You have an offense which I criticized every single day for an entire year, and the lead assistant and the head coach of said offense are now being paid millions of dollars to coach other teams in the East. I mean, if
Hmm.
you're a Raptor fan, rejoice. I'm not saying Adrian Griffin is a bad coach. I just don't understand necessarily the hype about it. I've listened to him talk about basketball. Seems to be, I think there's some element of Darvin Hamism and Ime
Yeah,
Udokaism to it, right? Where
I think he has good relationships with the players, and the vets really like him. He's good at development. I agree with you. I laughed when some people in the Sixers fan base were like all jumping down up and down for joy about offense, and I got into a little bit of a back and forth on Twitter with one guy and said, if you're expecting him to develop your young guys or um, to like have some guru for the offense, I suggest you look at where the Raptors were last year in offense and what tweaks were made from game 1 to game 82, and you'll discover none.
yeah, I mean, I think it's weird because you have these very incomplete people that are not necessarily going to fail, nor are they necessarily going to succeed. It'll really depend on the other coaches that they put in place to shore up some of their gaps. Like if
Hmm.
communication maybe isn't the greatest thing for Nurse, is he going to adapt? And instead of having people like Nate Bjorkgren on his fucking bench, having great communicators, people who are just great at building relationships, where his message can be better communicated to players who maybe are more prone to tuning him out because he's got a really big ego and he wears an NN hat all the time, right? Which just
Did
has
you
never sat
see?
right with me.
Did you see Fred on Stadium? The I didn't watch the whole thing. I just saw a portion of his comments, and he was talking about Nurse getting the job, and he made a comment about if I'm not there, meaning in Philadelphia.
Yeah, no, I think
What the
I
fuck
think he meant
was that?
Toronto, didn't he? He's
No, the way that it was parsed, the way that I read it, if I'm not there and I'm still in Toronto, that's how I read it. Then of course we don't want him to win. That's how I read it. But I was
I'm
seeing
gonna
like
read
a
it.
transcripted tweet about what he said. And
Um,
it was in bold capital letters. And
okay.
I didn't read it like if I'm somewhere else because that's what struck me. But maybe I just read it too fast because I've been functioning on very little sleep lately.
Mhm. Um, I'm gonna
And
try
there
to
was a bunch of articles that came out today saying that Philly might try to get Red. And I'm like, great, give us Maxi.
I, I mean, that would be crazy. Absolutely, Tyrese Maxey is one of my favorite players, and I would add shit to get that deal done, but I don't think that's gonna
Yeah.
happen. I'm trying to download this video, which is called. I mean, it has 5,000 views, and it says Fred VanVleet open to joining Sixers in free agency if I'm not there, which alludes perhaps to what you're referring to. Um,
Is the F in capitals and bold?
yeah. Let me see.
Okay, that's the one I'm referring to.
It's a video, yeah. Is that what you watched?
I just, it's a
Haven't
video.
heard
I didn't
before.
watch the video. I
Something
Here,
just
outside the
read.
box. He's going to
here.
bring new ideas, creative ideas. It'll be a great, breath of fresh air for them. Anytime you're changing head coaches, that's pretty much what you're looking for is a new identity, new voice for guys to kind of rally behind. I think, coming down the stretch, pretty much had to get Joel on board. I think once they got that, once Nick met with Joel, and as long as he's signing off on all the crazy stuff that coach wants to do, then I think that they'll be in a good spot. So I think he'll have some success. Hopefully not too much. If I'm not there, and I'm staying in Toronto, then we
See?
Okay, you are correct. You are correct. If I'm not
If
there
I-
and I'm staying in Toronto, so that is
Hello,
yeah.
Clutch.
Wow.
That's crazy, no?
One
Yeah.
of
Like
them
that's
failed,
putting
but
into the
other than
universe.
that,
I want to be in
I'm happy
Philly.
that he landed on his feet. You know,
Yeah.
our situation was our situation this year, and coming down the stretch, you know, they decided to go different ways. But I'm just happy that he landed on his feet. Good to see him, you know, back with another job.
Have you got
Yeah. Okay.
Imagine how
So
bad that pick and roll would be with them trying to run a pick and roll with Fred and Joel. Joel would be killing Nurse.
well, I mean,
I cannot
like,
believe he said that.
I can't either. I mean, I
It's
kind
almost
of.
tampering.
It's not. Is it tampering at this point?
If I'm not there and I stay in Toronto, that's putting into the universe I want to be playing for Philly.
Can you tamper with yourself? I don't think you can. Like if he said, "Oh, like if he was a Raptor and he goes, he's like, "Yeah, we would really love AD." I think that's tampering. I don't think it's tampering if you just say, "I want to be somewhere else." That's not tampering.
I thought there was something that came out with one of the teams where a player said something about wanting to
Yeah.
go somewhere, like maybe even with Kyle going to Miami. I thought there was a team where one of the players made a comment about how they would like to play with those players if they didn't end up there, and there was a second round draft pick taken away for it. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure like okay, yeah, you can't there's
I
got to
mean,
be
they might
some
not charge
sort
him
of
for tampering, but it's about as blatant as it gets, Rob. Like, if I'm not there and I stay in Toronto, that's him saying, and Clutch represents both Nick and Fred. And it's timed for him to be on the show the day after Nick gets hired to
You know
talk
what?
about it.
I think these two are in for a rude awakening, Fred and Nurse. I think they've
Who's
sort
Fred
of
go
bet
up
on,
there?
you know, they've sort of bet on themselves. They've both done that. And look, man, like I just think karma's a bitch, right? Like to some extent, I really do. I do believe that. Um, I don't know. I think good things happen to good people. Maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe my parents are wrong. Maybe my grandparents are wrong. Maybe everything I believe about life is wrong. But I just don't think that you get to fuck over so many people and be so selfish and then somehow end up with happy endings. It doesn't usually work out that way. And I think right now the basketball gods are sort of spiritually thanking, you know, teams that have built the right way, done things the right way, and superstars who genuinely care about their teammates and are, you know, love the game and have worked for it. So in a weird way right now, watching the Heat and the Nuggets in the finals makes me feel like I'm watching like the basketball karma in a lot of ways, right?
I'm thrilled by it. I did not want
Yeah.
Lakers in Boston. I wanted the Heat and Nuggets because I wanted teams that fought to get there. And I loved watching. I've watched every Nuggets game this year. They're just a beautiful team to watch.
They are. They're
It reminds
fantastic.
me of back in the day with the Spurs, just the way that they are unselfish. I loved your comment on Instagram. I just saw it the other day and liked it and made a comment because Joker is like literally the most humble player in the association, or arguably the most humble. He's just such a great role model for kids. Tonight there was all these Lakers fans flooding Twitter talking about how they're not even bothering to watch and it's a waste. And some idiot put up something about, oh, they knocked off the 8th and 7th and 5th team or something, and that's the watered down championship that Joker's going to get. And I couldn't resist and responded back, yeah, and they swept your team. Are you going to ignore that? You know, like
Yeah.
to me, it's like there's Lakers fans drive me crazy because to them there's only one team, and unfortunately the league and ESPN and the large national television audience jams this stuff down fans' throats about the large markets because the sponsors want that, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I watched Rasheed Wallace go up against was it the San Antonio Spurs?
Yep.
Right?
Or the Lakers. Was it?
No. The Pistons and Spurs met in the finals once, right? And the Spurs won. Was it 2007? I can't remember. I know that obviously like in 2004 the Pistons beat the Lakers, and it was great to see. It was like a bit of a David versus Goliath, blue chip versus old chip sort of prospects. But it was interesting and fascinating to me in every single year that I got to see San Antonio in the finals, or I got to see Detroit in the finals. I just thought that it was great. It was what I liked about basketball. Everything that San Antonio did, offensively, defensively, is what I love about
Pistons beat
basketball.
the Lakers for the title, and then they lost to the Spurs the next year.
That's what I thought. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
exactly it. So
And it was
that
2003-4.
yeah. So the
And they
2003-4 and then
got
2004,
Rasheed
2005.
deadline.
Right. So 2004, 2005. I'm watching like Rasheed Wallace and Tim Duncan, two of my favorite players in the whole world, go up for a
Although
championship. Yeah, and it's
I
just
love
great.
Rasheed.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, like, it was just such a great experience to sort of watch two teams that played so well. And I mean, there's so many teams in history that have just played a beautiful brand of basketball, and they've been led by very selfless leaders. Rasheed Wallace, very selfless guy as well, very willing to sacrifice touches and contract and all that stuff. So it's like, this is what I love about basketball. It's not the individual, it's the team, it's the game, And so we're watching two teams in the finals. We're not watching an individual. We're not watching guys who make it about themselves. And I love that. So anyways.
Wallace would
yeah.
have beasted in the current era.
Yes, he would have. Absolutely.
Did you ever see him warm up before games?
Yes. I
He
actually
made
did.
some of the craziest, thickest shots I've ever seen in my life. He did crazy shit on the court
I agree.
when it's warm-ups.
He's always been one of my favorite players. Probably of all time. Actually, he is one of my favorite players of all time. If you look at the Panzari basketball YouTube cover, he's on it. He's on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, Tamberlin, it was really lovely talking to you. We are over 3 hours. I am getting sleepy, and apparently you are as well, because you've mentioned a few times you haven't been sleeping well. So I do hope that you sleep well, and I just got a new couch, so I think I'm going to pass out on my couch because I don't want to wake my girlfriend right now.
Good catching up with you, High Live streamers. Sorry I've not been around, but life sometimes doesn't go the way you want it to. Anyway, enjoy. Are you doing a show after every game?
Yep, I'm going to do a show after every game, and in about 2 days, I'm going to start doing videos on draft prospects as well. So that's pretty much going to be the content up until the draft, and then we'll start getting into free agency shit and trades.
Well,
and all
I'll be
that
around
stuff,
for free agency to talk, and I'll be around after the games. I haven't done much research on draft stuff, so I don't know how much help I do there.
Yeah.
I'll be watching instead of talking.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Have a good one, and good night.
You too.
Cheers.
Bye.
See ya. Bye. All right. Kind of got disrupted by some trolls there. I assure you I did not say that word and have never said that word, not live, not anywhere, but it is very triggering when somebody says that you did, and I don't know. It's very weird. Anyways, we had not dealt with incessant trolling in a long time. It feels like we've been pretty clear. Haven't been talking too much about Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet too much, so been pretty clear of trolls, but leave it to them to come back on a night where it seems like we didn't really have moderators in the chat tonight. So yeah. Anyways, interesting, lively discussion. I'm pretty sure it hopscotched all over the place. I apologize. I'm going straight to bed. I got a lot of editing to do tomorrow. Someone saying, Rob, is it true you got contacted by Fred's people? Yes. I have had communication in the past year and a half with people who are very deeply connected into Fred's camp, which is including family, friends, close friends. I'm not talking like fifth cousin, twice removed. I'm talking like people close to him. Yes, I have had contact with those people, and conversations have been civil lately. That's a good thing. I mean, I've always gotten the impression that he wanted to leave, that they wanted him to leave at least. I don't know about him wanting to leave, but I've always kind of gotten that impression that they wouldn't mind if he played in Detroit, in Chicago, in New York, or somewhere else. Maybe somewhere closer, maybe somewhere warmer, maybe somewhere where they don't have to, get passports and all that shit. So I don't know. I mean, like if you're Canadian, it's cool. It's where you grew up, whatever. But, where you grow up, what anthem you grow up listening to and reciting. And, in the United States, we did the Pledge of Allegiance every day before. I mean, that sort of sets a trend for like sometimes like how you want your kids to grow up and all that stuff too. And, I feel like the more ignorant you are, the less likely you are to adapt to new cultures, new countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So whereas some people take it in stride, for some people it's always going to feel different and a bit of a thing. So I just, I don't think that's the issue with Fred. I think it's just always going to be about the money with that dude. And if the Raptors are not willing to pony up and some other team is, well, then you're going to lose Fred VanVleet. And that's always been the case. I told you this guy's not going to show any loyalty when it comes to that stuff. So someone's saying, do you think Fred VanVleet sign and trade for Maxey is possible? Maybe, but I doubt it. They tried to get Maxey, I remember, for Kyle Lowry, and it didn't quite work out. So there's a natural chemistry there. I mean, Tyrese Maxey and Scotty Barnes, despite their hilarious screw up with the All-Star weekend, are good friends. And so I think it would be an interesting duo to build around. I think for all the people who really, really love the idea of bringing Anthony Simons in, I just like Tyrese Maxey so much more than that dude. So much more. I would be all over it, man. I would love it. I don't know about 13 and Fred. I don't even think you can combine. You can't. I don't think you can combine. I'm positive, actually. You can't combine a sign and trade player going out. But you can take multiple things back, which is to say you can take back picks, you can take back players, prospects, contracts, etc. So yeah, it wouldn't be Tyrese straight up. It would have to be Tyrese and stuff. So I don't know. I wonder if the Raptors would be good enough taking DeAnthony Melton back, DeAnthony Melton and stuff like DeAnthony Melton plus a role player plus a pick or something. Like, would that be? I don't even think like you need plus because DeAnthony Melton's a hell of a talent. I really like him. So yeah. Anyways, I'm off to sleep. Got a lot of stuff to do over the next few days. I had initially wanted to do draft videos on one prospect every single day leading up to the draft, starting in June 1st. I think it's going to start more like June 4th now. Okay, so we'll do the live after. I got a lot of work to do, man. There's like a lot of stuff for Penn Dance, Pinsard Basketball, Pinsard Films. And I'm trying to sort myself out. I'm trying to get to, I don't know how many of you, just feel like you have too much stuff. Your stuff's all over the place. You need to get organized. Really been trying to get organized the last 2 to 3 weeks since Penn Dance ended. Just trying to get the next year started right. Have a good vision for what I want to accomplish this year. It's been tough. There are people in my life that just do not agree with that vision. They don't fit with that vision. So trying to understand what the hell to do with those people. There are items in my home that don't fit with that vision of what I'm trying to do with my life. So trying to figure out what the fuck to do with those items. Just replaced the most disgusting couch. I didn't know how bad that couch was until I took it out and saw it in a different light. So we just got a new couch today. I'm really happy with it. It's comfortable, it's bigger, whatever, right? Took a little bit of getting used to. And I'd had this disgusting ass couch. It's not even disgusting, it's just so scratched up. It was so scratched up, it was so beat up. I'd had it for 14 years. 13 years. This couch for 13 years. There was a cigarette burn on it, which is crazy embarrassing. There's like so much, there's a rip on it from the cat. They had ripped it. And I'm just like taking the shit out. And I swear to God, it was embarrassing. I was like, this was our couch for like the last year. It's so worn out. It's so bad. And it's just like that dilapidated feeling. And also, like, you probably noticed my lighting is different. Well, there was like a lamp that was just consistently busted. And my entire office here was like very cluttered. I had like poles and like things, and I often had to like kind of step around things to get in and out of this room, right? It's a very small room. It's like basically a closet that I converted into a studio. And it's so strange, like how these small subtle things can sort of catch up with you. And so, you know, trying to fight with my girlfriend over like, no, we need less stuff, and she's trying to be like, no, we need more stuff. Yeah, I got 4 coffee makers. Who needs a coffee maker? Let me know in the DMs. Like you know, you can buy it for like $10. I mean, I'm talking like really great coffee makers, and they all seem like great ideas at the time. But then you end up with 4 of them. You're like, what the fuck do I need? An espresso machine, a Tassimo machine, and a Keurig machine, bro. What the fuck? And I don't use any of these machines. I just use my regular old coffee maker, like you know. So it's just like, what am I doing? I have like these knickknacks, and you know, my parents died, so I ended up like holding on to some of their stuff. So now it's like, now I got their stuff, some of their stuff too. Like not only the photo albums, I got like mugs and, you know, like random heirlooms and shit. So it's just like, there's so much stuff, you know, and it's like, there's so much stuff, and it's just like, it's all taking energy. It's like, I got these 2 speakers. I don't even use these 2 speakers. What the fuck are these? You know what I mean? Like, I gotta get rid of these things, man. So I'm just trying to get rid of stuff, and I'm not too concerned about what I get for it. Maybe I get $1 for these speakers that cost $40. I don't care. Just take it. Just get it out of my fucking face. You know, that's where I'm at. Rob, to organize is at Rob. Way to organize is set a stopwatch for X amount of hours, and you don't sleep till the clock hits 0. You stop the watch every time you don't do productive stuff like bathroom, eating. Oh damn, that's interesting, yo. That is interesting. I when I was doing pen dance stuff, like when I was doing the DCPs and all that stuff, I was actually I was setting up like an 8-hour timer every single morning, but I would just let it run. And it was so interesting to just let it run, because sometimes you think that you're going for like a 5-minute smoke break. So you check the clock when you're going out and it says 7 hours, 10 minutes left. And then you come back from your 5-minute smoke break and it's 6 hours and 30 minutes left. You're like, how did my 5-minute smoke break turn into, you know, like almost an hour? And then you realize, oh, right, because I scrolled, I checked Instagram, I checked my phone, blah, 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 blah. So it was a really good, painful, you know, perhaps reminder of just how much time evaporates. But I believe in time boxing. It has worked for me. Time boxing works, the Pomodoro technique. There's a lot of stuff if you want to be more productive, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. Recycling plant and you get paid for electronics? Really? That's interesting. I mean, I got a lot of stuff, man. I got like printers. I got 3 printers in my house. I swear, like, we use a printer once every 2 weeks. Why do we have 3 printers? Like, I realize sometimes at some point it's like things cost money, but like, who cares? Like, I have my first film camera up for sale because I don't need to, you know. There's so much stuff. And it's just like, I think you get too caught up in like, oh well, I used to have this. And I think like I've come down to realize, like, people own shit. Like, people think about owning shit because it's like a self-esteem thing. When I was poor, I grew up, you know, poor. I didn't have stuff, so I figured the best way to counteract my let's call it shame of not having enough pants is to have a lot of pants, and to not have video games is to have a lot of video games. And now I have a lot of video games. And it's like, a lot of people, they wake up every single day and they don't really think about life. They don't think about purpose. They don't think about God. They don't think about, you know, other people. They don't think about, you know, values, improvement, learning. They don't think about that stuff. What do they think about? They think, this is my stuff. Would a complete douchebag have you know, would a complete failure in life have a 75-inch HD TV and a PS5? I don't think so. You know, would a complete failure have a, you know, $600 Hugo Boss suit? I don't think so. So, I mean, like, you're using these things to prop yourself up. But, I mean, in all honesty, I'm not trying to shit on anybody who's very materialistic, but I just mean, like, there's more to life, I think. I think there's a lot more to life than just being materialistic about shit. So I am, you know, pushing that to an overdrive at this point. I just, you know, I've lived with a lot of stuff. Like, most of my life, I've lived with a lot of stuff. Like, my mom had a lot of stuff. We always, like we moved around so many places. We moved around Avenel, Washington Heights, New Jersey, Jersey City, you know, nice. We always had a room in our house, whether it was a house or an apartment or a dingy apartment or a bullshit apartment with, like, you know, holes. We always had this one gigantic closet full of shit that nobody needed. and no surface in our house was clear. Like everything had knickknacks on it. It's so, I don't know. And I mean, like, the thing about it is, like, I'm thinking about, I don't know, at some point over the next year and a half to 2 years, I would love to start a family. And I don't want to bring someone into this world and then train them to believe that this is normal, to just have like shit on all the surfaces. You know what I mean? It's overwhelming. Anyway, this is like a really random, I don't know who I'm talking to, 68 people here. But thank you guys. This live has gone very long. I don't know how I used to have the stamina to do 4-hour lives. I don't know who's listening to 4-hour lives, but it's really nice of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, I'll see you guys in 2 days. All right, peace. Have a good night. Giovanni saying, remember when you own stuff, it owns you. Attachment is a thing of to things as a prison in its own way. I fully agree. There is a quote. I will leave you on a beautiful quote. Oh, man, I hope I don't butcher it. I probably will butcher it. But effectively it is, to the man for whom enough is not enough, nothing is enough. Epictetus. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's a direct quote verbatim. And it just means that if you're not happy with enough, you'll never be happy with anything in your life. And I fully am starting to believe that that is true. Yeah. Sheridan Ford saying, thank you, Rob, for your time. My pleasure, man. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time. Facts. Absolutely. Yo, I'm not like, you know, if material shit is your jam, you know, and you're listening to this and saying like, yo, Rob, back off. That's cool. Like, everyone's got their own path. Everyone's got their own journey. Everyone's got to, you know, prioritize their shit. But I'm just saying, like what I was saying earlier about the Boston Celtics, you can't aim at two places at once, right? You can't. And I just don't, I think material shit gets in the way. I think most addictions get in the way. You know, these are distractions. These are distractions from real thoughts, real emotions, real growth and progress that you need to make spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And yeah, I think there's some adage, less is more. I fully believe that, man. I just really think, like, you know, imagine how liberating it would be to know that you could just leave the country and move to another country for 6 months and you didn't have to have like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and some people worse than others, but like 5,000, 6,000 things that you gotta get rid of or put in storage or whatever. It's just, it lightens your load, you know. And to be honest, you don't need that many things. You just don't. You got 2 cups, 2 plates, 2 quarter plates. You're good, man. You don't need all this other extra shit. You got like 2 forks, 2 knives. Like, I think there's just so many people out there who live with less. And, you know, yeah, you could be like, well, what I'm gonna do if you know, 6 people come over? It's like, fuck, you know, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, maybe have like, and then you get into the exactly that, right? I have 6 bar stools because what if 4 extra people come over? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's excess. It's excess. We, like, some people have, like, I remember my aunt and uncle, they used to have 2 different living rooms. Or what the fuck was the point of that? 2 living rooms. Great. We got a space for it. You just, I don't know. It's just too much. So and honestly, the point of this larger point was that, like, by removing all of these extra things that are distracting you from what you're trying to do in life, that what you're trying to do in life becomes much more glaringly obvious. Because you're not getting all of the dopamine hit from growing your Instagram followers or, you know, growing your subscriber rate. Like, you actually, these are all like little games within the game, right? The obviously bigger game is to figure out your shit and like really get in line with your purpose, like, which is, you know, if you're religious, then that purpose is like what you're doing with your God. And if you're not religious, then it's just what are you doing in this world, right? And all this other stuff, like accumulating shit, getting the newest car, getting the newest video game, getting the newest this is just all distractions. They're meant, like, in my opinion, they're just meant to like sort of serve as like minor things for you to preoccupy your focus, and to give you the illusion of false progress. It's not real progress, though. It's not real progress. Same person, 4,000 subscribers, 2,000 subscribers, 1,000 subscribers, $1 million, $1,000. You know, and to wrap this up, this is what I really most appreciate about Nikola Jokic, is that he seems to instinctively understand this, despite being only 27, 28 years old, is he hasn't really changed with the money. You know, I've mentioned this a couple of times, that I know someone who knew him very much, like very much. We come from the same country. I don't come from the same, you know, city as him. My family doesn't come from the same city, but it's close. And, you know, someone who knew him as a very young kid, and they say, like, when I see him talk now, he's still the same person. Because that's the point, right? He didn't get distracted by all the other shit. I think it's very, very important to not lose way, lose purpose. Anyways, all right, have a good one. Have a good night, guys. Take care.